Something is watching.
I am the Watchman.
They were innocents, but soon to be victims.
Susan went berserk. Again, killed her sister. Susan had accidentally fallen on an axe. She was dead.
He loves me, not you.
Adam Kent, the oldest of the Kent brothers, was unaware of what had happened to his brothers. 5 years earlier, in August of 1981, Vicky, Adam's daughter, was sent to the Brant Hospital for the criminally insane for killing 2 neighborhood boys.
Have your old room, dear.
The voice seemed to be coming from the hat box. Her face. Mary ran to the cellar. She'd be safe there.
Hi, I'm Spice Williams Crosby from Fatal Games, and you are listening to Hysteria Continues.
Yes, welcome back to Hysteria Continues, episode 41. And this episode, I'm going to try and perhaps outdo Nathan with my choice. As you can hear, it's Doris Wishman all the time going on at the moment, so there should be some interesting editing happening hopefully later. Yes, we are covering Doris Wishman's slasher epic, 1983's A Night to Dismember, which should make for some quite fun discussion, I think, coming up. But before we get to that, on all of our wish lists, I imagine, are our fellow podcasters. So how are we doing over in Ireland, Erik?
Good, thank you. Futuristic slasher epic, you should say, because it's set in 1986.
It is, and it was made in 1979 and 1983, and probably a few weekends in between, I imagine. Yes, but is the sun shining for you?
It is actually, believe it or not.
I know, it's funny. We've had a mini heat wave, which is just about broken here. But well, that's good to hear. Erik, how about you, Nathan? How are you doing?
I'm okay.
Yeah.
What's
it? Is it still? It's quite early in the morning, isn't it, with you?
Yeah, I just woke up like 5 minutes ago.
Wow. Okay. Well, that's dedication, isn't it, to the podcast? So thank you.
Well,
for that.
I just woke up 5 minutes ago as well. It's 2:00 over here.
Okay. Was it a heavy night?
In the morning.
I'm lying. Yeah.
And how about you, Joseph? How are you doing?
I just woke up a couple of hours ago.
Okay. Right. Well, there you go.
That's not just a couple of hours.
Yes.
You've had time to get up, go for a morning run, drink a ton of coffee.
I have, but I haven't.
Okay. Well, that's a blow-by-blow account of our lives, which I know that's why you tune in to the Hysteria Continues, to hear what we've been up to. Well, yes, we are covering Doris Wishman's A Night to Dismember, the little known slasher classic, or is it? We're also going to be doing a top 3 list. We're going to be looking at our worstest, if that's a word, which of course it isn't. Bottom 3 horror movies.
Bottomless 3.
Bottomless 3, yes. So it's the tops of the bottoms for us today, isn't it, Erik?
Yes, it is.
Okay, right. Well, we're going to be getting onto that, so that's going to be quite interesting because I think we've got some contention, but perhaps with a couple of the picks. See if you agree with us. As ever, I kind of guess we'll probably launch into some recently seen, and we're currently, I think we might explain last time when we did Don't Go Into the Woods Alone, that we're kind of recording a little bit out of whack. We're actually a bit like Doris Wishman's A Night to Dismember. In fact, we are recording, you'll hear this in about 2 weeks' time, so we're doing some kind of weird Wishman-esque kind of shenanigans, because I'm, bizarrely, again, time travelling, I will be back by the time this goes out, I think, or will I? I'm not sure, but from my holiday, but that's why we're recording this in advance. So just if you've been waiting for any feedback, can you send some feedback in? We've got shit ton of it at the end of this program. So if you haven't heard your feedback before now, hopefully it'll be here. It's just we're a little bit out of kilter, but hopefully after summer we'll be back onto we will be regular again, as it were, regular clockwork. So
I got my X-Lax ready.
Exactly. Yes. Yeah. Well, we've obviously keeping it classy as always. We're recently seen, so we've had a little break before since the last show. So, Nathan, what have you been watching in the last couple of weeks?
I don't remember much of what I watched. It's difficult for me to remember, but I did watch Hollywood's New Blood.
Okay,
I won't say anything about it because I do plan to pick it.
But of course.
Oh, no. It was very fun, and I think you're going to enjoy it.
Okay. What year is it from?
89, 87, something like that.
Okay.
It's late 80s, yeah.
Is it shot on video?
No, it's not.
I don't think it is, no.
Okay. But that's another very obscure one, isn't it? I've not seen it. I've got it knocking around somewhere from courtesy of Baby Jesus, but I don't think I've ever got around to watching it. But that should be interesting.
You're gonna love it.
Oh, I bet.
What's it called again?
Hollywood's New Blood.
Okay.
Just do a little Google search on that, Erik, and you frighten yourself. Is there anything you can tell us about, Nathan, that you've been watching recently?
Last night I watched Girls Gone Dead, the newer movie, and I really liked it. I thought it was really fun and entertaining, and it's a horror comedy, and some of the comedy kind of falls flat, but some of it really had me laughing. There's one scene in particular I love where a guy and a little person are trying to get away from the killer, and the killer comes out swinging an axe, and the guy grabs this little person who's supposed to be a friend of his and holds him up as a shield, and he ends up getting killed.
Really?
I thought it was terrible that the poor little person's there kicking, trying to get away, and his friend of all people is holding him up as a shield. So
isn't it Beetlejuice?
Yeah, that's who it is. And then after he gets killed, the guy throws the corpse into the killer so he can get away.
Wow.
I mean, I thought that scene was really funny and amusing, and I thought it was probably one of the better low budget movies I've seen lately because like I said, it's not serious. It's got a huge body count, and the killer uses an axe. So how could I dislike it?
Okay, is the killer dressed as a clown? Is it that one?
No, he's dressed like a monk.
Okay.
With a weird mask on, and it's like a monk's robe or something.
Okay. Interesting. Okay, well, I have to watch out for that one. Anything else?
No, I started to watch The Nostril Picker last night, but Wes said he didn't want to watch it, so I have to wait and watch it today. Okay.
Right. I don't think I've seen that one. That's that came out on Vipco in the UK, didn't it? I think, Erik.
Yeah. I remember the sleeve, but despite its absurd title, it never enticed me, I have to say.
No, same here.
Well, okay. I heard that it has nothing to do with what that title is, so I guess that title's just something stupid to make people wonder what it's about. But I heard it's nothing about some guy picking his nose.
Okay, right. Well, those are the more recommendations from the crew at Hysteria Continues. But, thank you, Nathan. How about you, Joseph?
Well, I've seen a few things, but one movie in particular I want to warn people away from is The Detention. It's I don't remember the guy's. The director's name is Joseph Kahn, I think. I don't remember, but it's basically kind of. I guess you'd want to call it a comedy, like a horror comedy, or it tries to be. I dislike a lot of films, personally. I have some weird taste, but I don't really outright hate many movies, but this one I absolutely loathed. I mean, this is the kind of movie that thinks it's funny to be, outwardly obnoxious just for the sake of being obnoxious. So there are no likable characters whatsoever. Everyone, I mean, if these were teenagers I hung out with in high school, I would actually go on a killing spree and they'd lock me up for the rest of my life. I mean, I hated this movie. It's so obnoxious and just so irritating. It's like claws on a chalkboard. It's basically, it has no plot to speak of. I mean, when I'm not kidding. There is really no plot. I mean, if I had to call something out, it's basically a bunch of kids in high school constantly making pop culture references, and then occasionally a killer will show up, or somebody will get involved with aliens, or someone will time travel back to the 1980s, but or the early 90s. I'm sorry. But it's just so irritating, and I mean, it's either going to be one of those movies you really like or you really hate. I mean, I don't think there's going to be any middle ground, but I could not stand it, and if I ever have to watch it again, I will absolutely kill myself. I'm not kidding.
Right. Well, we consider ourselves warned.
Oh, I can't wait to watch it.
Yeah, you're probably going to pick
terrible.
it as well. Make us all watch it.
I'm telling you what, if I like it, I'm picking it.
Well, you heard it here first. What's actually happened to that film? Did it get delayed for ages? Is it?
Yeah, it was put on the shelf for forever. I think they were trying to get a cinema release, but it never got one, and I can kind of understand why. I mean, it's not a poorly made film. I mean, it's really well made, but it's just so, I think it's trying to make fun of modern teenagers, who text all the time and things like that. But I don't like movies that are, obnoxious, on purpose. If it's accidentally obnoxious, I can kind of, at least chuckle at it. But this is just like, hey, let's try to irritate the audience as much as we can. And God, I hate that fucking movie.
Well, okay, don't hold back.
It had a budget of 10 million according to the IMDb.
Did it really?
Wow. Quite a lot. Yeah,
it's a lot, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, they had to pay Dane Cook.
Who is Dane Cook?
Isn't he in it?
Yeah, he's a comedian. He's very irritating, but he's actually the least irritating part of the film.
Well, there you go. Well, yes. Well, thank you for that, Joseph. Anything else?
Yeah, there was actually a horror comedy that I saw that I really liked. Was called Some Guy Who Kills People, and it stars Kevin Corrigan. He's in The Departed and a few other things. But basically, he's this guy. He gets released from like a mental institution, and he gets a job in like a little diner. And he's an artist, so he's trying to put his life together, and he finds out he has like an 11-year-old daughter that he never knew he had. So a lot of the movies, like him spending time with her and getting to know her, and she's actually not the typical where were you my whole life. She actually likes the guy, and she's trying to help him get a girlfriend and be more outward and assertive and stuff. But in the meantime, someone's going around killing people that were associated with an incident from his past, which I won't spoil, but and he always seems to be at the crime scene, so you pretty much think what's going on, but it has a few twists and turns. But it's surprisingly a sweet film, and it's got some really funny moments, courtesy of the sheriff character played by who was it, Barry Bostwick. He's kind of funny in the film, and the lead character, as I said, he's extremely likable. And if I had a failing, I didn't really care much for the revelation and how it ends. I mean, I think they were trying to shoot for like a kind of an upbeat thing, but I don't know, it just didn't really work for me. But the rest of the movie, more than makes up for it, and I would highly recommend that.
Okay, interesting. You seen that, Nathan?
I've not seen it, but I want to.
Okay. Oh,
if you're going to pick a horror comedy, pick that, not Detention.
Okay. Right.
Well, I got to pick both, though.
You're not allowed.
But like many people saying the movie's like the worst thing you've seen in years. It's just a red flag to a bull.
Well, I'll tell you what. I would rather watch Detour 100 times than ever watch Detention again.
Okay.
I would rather watch Rob Zombie's both Halloween films than ever watch Detention again.
Gosh, it must be bad.
It's terrible.
Yeah. Well. I mean, at least you got one good pick out of that. So, was anything else?
Yeah, I mean, just a few little things. I rewatched Cobra, which I think is such an absurdly, great action slasher hybrid. I think the bad guy is like really good and over the top, and Sylvester Stallone, he has all these one-liners, and that's pretty much it. I mean, it's been so long since we recorded, I can barely remember what all I've watched, but that's the three main things.
Okay, all right. Thank you very much, Joseph. How about you, Erik?
Yeah, well, I've been away, so I haven't really watched that much, but I've watched, in the last few days, I watched The Green Slime, which is a 1968, I think it's Japanese-USA co-production. It's a science fiction film rather than horror, although it does have some similarities to Alien and Species 2, probably. It's about these astronauts go to intercept an asteroid that's heading for Earth. They land on the asteroid. This is much like Armageddon, actually. They land on the asteroid and plant some nuclear explosives, planning to, blow the asteroid smithereens. Accidentally, though, without knowing it, they bring back some green slime from the asteroid, which eventually metamorphoses into these very, very rubbery, hilarious looking rubber monsters. They look kind of like, well, it makes the alien at the end of Luigi Cozzi's Contamination look like the work of KNB or ILM or something. I mean, it's really, really shoddy. And the spaceship miniatures in it are incredibly, like, considering it was made the same year as 2001, it's quite shocking how bad the spaceship effects in it are. I mean, it's quite entertaining. It's probably, we were saying before about films in the 60s, maybe because they're a bit before our time, we don't get them as much. But yeah, I did find it a bit plodding and a bit dull, to be honest, even though there is some mirth to be had. And it's got a great sort of funky 60s theme song, which is completely out of place with the film. It's more like a beach movie theme song. I don't know if you ever heard it. It's called The Green Slime, the song.
Okay. I've not seen the film, but yeah, well, it sounds like fun.
It's a bit of fun, but it did test my limited attention span, I have to say. The other one I saw, which was only made a couple of years later, but it's absolutely one of my favourites, and it kept me riveted for its 100-minute running time, is Tombs of the Blind Dead, which I hadn't watched for a number of years, and I still love it as much as ever watching it last night. I think it's really atmospheric. It's a story of basically three people, Beth, Virginia and Roger. They go on a train trip together, and Beth is a bit jealous of the other two flirting, so she jumps off the train and takes refuge in an abandoned town. Well, it's not abandoned as such, it's in ruins because it hasn't been inhabited for sort of hundreds of years, and the blind dead of the title awaken every night and come after her in slow motion, and it's actually quite tense, and considering the effects of the blind dead themselves are a tad shoddy, particularly their arms, which look like sort of rubbery fake Halloween things you can get for maybe 50 cents in the local joke shop. It's amazing how effective the film still manages to be. It's a slow burner, I mean, and it's not incredibly gory, apart from one scene where it flashes back to the blind dead in their previous lives as Templar Knights. We see them torturing a woman tied to a sort of crucifix of some kind. But otherwise, it's pretty gore-free, and it relies more on atmosphere in that. And it has a blisteringly good ending, I think. And I really enjoy it, I have to say. And there's a great sequence set in a shop where they make mannequins dummies. It's very, very effective.
No, it's a great film, isn't it? I've just bought a new poster for that, actually. But
I saw that, yes.
Yeah.
That's kind of what, I think that probably was subconsciously inspired me to slip it in last night.
Ooh, well, there you go. I love all of the... actually, we haven't had one of these, so we might as well. We are missing...
Mitchell, no, please, oh, your hand!
But of course.
Yay.
But yeah, no, I love the Blind Dead films. I think the fourth one's a bit dull. I adore the third one, Ghost Galleon.
Oh, I love the third one.
Yeah,
that's my favorite.
But the first one is really, really, really good, and like I say, very atmospheric, and the ending is incredible, isn't it? I think it's such a clever
the train,
ending. Yeah, I really like that. So
that's an incredibly eerie shot of a child with blood pouring down its face. It's not something you would see sort of in modern cinema.
No. Well, the Spanish seem to be... Have you ever seen Who Could Kill a Child?
Oh, that's a fantastic film. I love it. Yeah,
that's really good film. It's kind of
it's really intense, sort of. Yeah.
Well, it's kind of... I think people said that Stephen King may have nicked the idea for Children of the Corn from it, didn't he? Because it's like an island where all the children have killed all the adults, and the two English holidaymakers end up there, and then they basically have to kill the children to try and get away and fight them. And it's just not something you would see in today's kind of films, is it? Like quite small children being shot in the head and stuff like that. So, but yeah.
Didn't the director of Who Can Kill a Child go on to devise the UK game show 321?
Was it?
I think he did,
interesting,
yeah.
is it, but I don't know.
And that's how he made his fortune.
Oh, okay. Interesting. Right. Well,
You should make a game show called "Who Can Kill a Child."
yes, that would be interesting, wouldn't it?
Yeah. Like Hunger Games or something, yeah.
You want a trip to Maui? There you go.
Talking, I'm sorry, just off as an aside, but one of the films I watched recently, I'm not going to talk about it now, but it's Battle Royale, and I just heard, in light of the Hunger Games and obviously the whole thing about children being killed and killing each other, is that they're supposed to be doing a Battle Royale TV show, aren't they, in the States?
Really?
Yeah, they want to.
I haven't heard a thing about that.
Yeah, apparently it's in development. I don't quite know how that's going to happen because the whole reason I think they never made a remake of Battle Royale in the States was because it was around the time of Columbine, wasn't it, and all of that. And obviously you've had the recent shootings and stuff. So you even got people like Bob Weinstein saying we need to call a summit to talk about violence in movies. And of course, this is the man who gave us Pulp Fiction and The Burning. But there you go. But anyway, sorry about that, Eric. Is there anything else?
No, just those two, because I was busy sunbathing my tits off on the beach in Spain.
Yes. Did you find Inga? Was it Inga?
No, I didn't, but I was touched by Jesus.
Were you? Mm. Who was Jesus?
Jesus. Oh, he's just a friend. Don't worry, it was nothing illicit or explicit.
It wasn't. So wasn't. Did you end up in any supermarkets?
I did, but they only sold water and iced tea and stuff. I was very disappointed. I couldn't find the video section in the supermarkets I went into.
Well, you're obviously not looking.
Do you know what I did try though? And you actually can't drink this lovely little shot because it has Baileys in it. Being a vegan, but if you mix Baileys, grenadine, and amaretto, it's called a cherry bakewell, and it tastes just like a cherry bakewell. It's absolutely delicious.
Okay. Interesting. Well, you can make vegan Baileys.
Can you?
In the past, yeah. We just
whiskey and
cream, soy cream and stuff. Yeah.
All right.
So, but
you can also use grenadine to make a Roy Rogers.
What's that?
Isn't
Roy
it
Rogers? It's an old
cola?
cowboy.
It's cola mixed with grenadine.
Oh. We used to have something called a green monster when I was growing up. Well, not when I was growing up.
Did you go to the doctor?
Well, no, it was a pint of a snakebite, sort of lager and cider, and a blue Curacao dropped into it, shot.
Just to let everyone know, Justin was drinking at the tender age of 6.
Yeah, of course. Well, apparently, I did when I was younger than 6, but about 3 or 4. I was given some wine at table, and I tap danced on the dining room table, much to the delight of my parents and their friends. Apparently, so
now he's the Barney Rubble of the podcast.
Well, I was drinking tequila at 2:00 this morning, so
oh dear.
So, yeah. So anyway,
how was your hangover?
It's not too bad actually, considering that we were drinking rosé and then onto tequila. Not the best mix in the world. No. But I thought it's probably having a hangover and reviewing A Night to Dismember is probably quite apt. So, but we'll be coming on to that shortly. I'll just quickly run through a few films I've seen, and I'm not going to make myself popular with Nathan when I say this, but I watched Return to Horror High the other day, and I didn't really enjoy it. It didn't stand up for me at all. I just thought it was pretty unfunny and not very thrilling. And having said that, I thought Laurie Lathine was fantastic, and I liked her in the lead. I thought they were really good, but they were deserving of a better movie, to be honest. It just didn't. It seemed to be like the worst of that combination of horror comedies that wasn't particularly horrifying and wasn't very funny, and it didn't stand up for me. But I know you do love that film, Nathan, don't you?
Yeah, I do. I got it on my list to choose at some point.
Well, we won't talk too much about it, but it's just kind of sometimes films stand up and sometimes they don't. But then that's just my opinion. Another film that I didn't. It's strange. I find it really tough to love this film, but it's because I do love Mario Bava. I think he's a fantastic director, and a lot of his films I really, really like. But $5 for an August Moon, which is one of his, early, 1970 shallows, I just find to be quite dull, which is bizarre, considering how garish it is and how over the top everything is. And it's got Edwidge Finique with hair bigger than some small countries, frogging around in gold lame. And that kind of stuff's great, but it's just, it's quite a languid production. Have any of you guys seen it, sort of recently?
Yeah. I mean, it looks great. But
yes, and I agree.
It is dull, yeah. The horror element is totally non-existent.
Yeah, it's strange, isn't it? It just doesn't work. Whereas something like Bay of Blood is eminently watchable. And obviously Blood and Black Lace again. But I don't know. It's $5 for an August. I mean, apparently, I was reading up about it, and he didn't really want to make the film, and he was kind of like he didn't like the script and stuff. So I think it's sort of that's what it kind of shone through. And finally, the other film, which I may have spoken about before, but is the British-American co-production from a few years ago, Triangle. I got that on Blu-ray cheap, and it's the one with Melissa George, who's in quite a few horror movies, and obviously was in Home and Away way back when. So if you haven't seen it, it's a story of a woman who's basically gets this kind of bad case of deja vu, and she basically is condemned to repeat the same day over and over and over again. And part of that included is her being on an abandoned ocean liner and being stalked by somebody in a hood. So it has some slasher movie trappings in it. It's probably not a slasher movie as such, but it certainly does borrow stuff from it, and it really stood up for me. I thought it was really good, very well put together, and I think it's kind of although it had made a little bit of splash when it came out, I think it's pretty much overlooked now. But what do you guys think of that film?
Love it.
I love it.
I went to see it in the cinema when it came out, and bought it on Blu-ray the day it was released, because I just was so impressed with it. Now I wanted to repeat viewings to see if the sort of time loops all made sense, which they kind of do. I don't know. It's sometimes it can be kind of hard to follow, saying okay, which version is this? And but no, I did love it.
Well, I did. If you haven't seen the film, don't listen to the next 20 seconds. But the bit I didn't get was, the car crash at the end. One of the person who was driving was on the floor was actually one of the women that was on the boat, and so that's right, isn't it? It wasn't.
Is it? I can't remember.
Dead body on the floor with the son's dead, and when she's watching the car, she's watching the wreck, and the camera pans across, and it's one of the instead of her dead on the road, it's one of the other women that was on the boat she gets on. So it was almost as if, was she actually really the mother? And I thought it was clever, but
I didn't twig that fact, actually. I don't think.
Okay, well maybe I miswatched it, but anyway, if you haven't seen it, we've just spoiled the ending for you. So, but it's still worth.
Well, the ending is so open to interpretation that I think it's impossible to spoil, really.
Exactly. So, well, that's a recommend from me. But that's kind of what we've been watching recently. But from some of the best and some of the not so good, we are going to move on to our top three, or our bottom three, of our personal worst horror movies that aren't slasher movies. And I think it's going to be quite interesting one to do. So, who wants to kick off? How about you, Nathan? Do you want to go first?
And I just want to say right off the bat, even though we're talking about worst horror movies, it doesn't mean I don't like them. It just means that their production values just may not be up to par with other movies. That's all.
Okay. Well, it's interesting because I think I've got a slightly different take on it, but that's all good.
Yeah.
So what's your?
Well, Nathan, he doesn't dislike anything. So
well, there is that. Yes.
Yeah.
So what is your number 3, Nathan?
My number 3 is one I saw on Mystery Science Theater 3000. It's called Manos: The Hands of Fate. I thought this movie was awesome, very hilarious, but a lot of it makes no sense. The acting's pretty abysmal. I don't know. There's just so much wrong with the movie. I mean, I love the scene where the daughter's missing, and the parents are freaked out and looking for her, and the mom, she barely opens the little bedroom door and just barely sticks her head in and yells and then shuts it and walks off. I mean, if your daughter's missing, why aren't you going into the room and looking for her?
Right.
I mean, it's just full of little weird scenes like that. And then there's the scene where the weird caretaker is like kind of pawing at the wife, and she just stands there and just kind of lets him like paw all over, and then suddenly she's like, "Don't you do that again, you beast!" And then slaps him and starts screaming for her husband. But it's very weird because she stands there for at least a good couple of minutes letting him paw at her before she starts screaming. So obviously, they didn't have very good production values, but it's the thought that counts. And I think that, they had a lot of heart. I also love the scene where the master's group of wives decide to all have a big fight for, I guess no apparent reason except their jealousy. The master's not even that good looking, so I don't know why they're going all crazy over him.
I've not actually seen this film because I've had a look at. Obviously, we kind of know what the top threes are, and there's quite a few on the list I haven't seen. So yeah, no, that's interesting. How about you guys? Have you seen Manos Hands of Fate?
No.
Yes.
No.
You have, okay.
Just on Mystery Science Theater.
When was it made? Is it 60s?
1966.
Okay.
6.
Okay, well, it's something I have to add. Maybe when I'm on holiday, I'm going to take a whole load of bad movies, hopefully, away with me. And certainly after sitting through A Night to Dismember more times than I probably should have, I think it's going to look better. But I won't jump into that yet. Is there anything else you want to say about it, Nathan?
I just think everybody should seek it out.
Okay, right. Well, thank you for your number 3. Erik, what's your third worst horror movie?
Okay, this will be probably controversial because I think a lot of people do like this one, but my number 3 is George Romero's Survival of the Dead, which is his most recent of his Living Dead films. I bought this sort of sight unseen. It came out in the UK, I think, before it came out in the States, so I hadn't really read any reviews, and I was just gobsmacked at how much I disliked it. For starters, I suppose just to give you a brief outline of the plot, it's about sort of two warring Irish families who are in the midst of the zombie crisis. One of them wants to get rid of the undead by just shooting them in the head as normal. The other family wants to keep hold of the undead, their loved ones who are now the undead, in the hopes that a cure will eventually be found. And so there's kind of this Western feel to this these warring factions. But the thing that bothered me most was, first of all, it looks quite cheap. It looked like it looks even cheaper than Night of the Living Dead, to be honest. The second thing that really bugged me was the horrible Irish accents. It was really insulting. I haven't been that insulted by an Irish accent in a film since Tom Cruise and Nicole Kidman in Far and Away, which, apart from being a really, really dull film, was just had the most hilarious accents that we still mock to this day over here in Ireland. I just thought that, there are some good things in Survival of the Dead. As Nathan said, these aren't, apart from my number 1 pick, which I do absolutely hate, there are things in Survival of the Dead I did like. There's a great image of a zombie riding a horse, which is quite arresting. And there was, there's a few sort of good ideas about finding alternative food sources apart from human beings for the zombies. But overall, I just thought the film was... I thought it was dull, I thought it looked cheap, and again, those Irish accents really grated on my tits.
Okay, well, interesting. What about you guys, Nathan and Joseph? You got any fans there of that film?
I haven't seen it.
Oh, really? Okay, interesting. I have seen it. I saw it. I kind of hired it. I didn't buy it because the Diary of the Dead I found very ho hum, and I do love zombie movies. I'm a big fan of zombie movies, always, have been. But I do think George Romero is I wouldn't say he's overrated, because I think he's made some fantastic movies, but I think he's kind of condemned to almost like a triangle style situation where he's condemned to remake the same film over and over again. And he's an old man, and he obviously doesn't, that's probably the only films he's able to make, the only films he's able to get financing for. And I think he, I did find it quite lackluster, and it wasn't, and I think it's time he hung up his, director's cap or whatever. But, there aren't any musings about any more Dead movies coming from us there, even though, considering we are probably, at the tail end of a major zombie boom, aren't we, with The Walking Dead and, World War Z and all those kind of, those films. And they're churning out sort of cheap zombie flicks all the time, aren't they, from Return of the Living Dead or Reanimation of the Dead or whatever it is, 3D, and there seems to be every week there's a new zombie movie coming out that's obviously shot on a camcorder in someone's back garden. But yeah, no, I think it's a warranted pick, Erik, so thank you. Is there anything else you want to say about it?
No, that's it.
No, okay, all right.
Well, long ago were the days of Burial Ground.
Indeed.
Yes, which would be one of my favourites.
Yeah,
that's one of my favourites.
Well, Joseph, what's your number 3?
My number 3 is a movie from 1995 called Grim, Grim.
Okay.
It's it's one of those Apex cheap movies. It's basically Rawhead Rex in a bunch of caves, except for it doesn't have Rawhead Rex's charm or its budget.
Right.
But I mean, and that's saying something considering, some of the special effects in Rawhead Rex are kind of iffy. But basically these people go spelunking, these caves, and there's a monster down there who can walk through walls. And, that sounds pretty good, but God, it is so dull. And the effects are so hideous. I mean, it looks like someone threw together some kind of animation on like Microsoft Paint or something like that. And I mean, the acting, I think it's a bunch of like British people trying to do American accents, or Irish people doing American accents. I can't really remember, but the accents are so they're iffy. I mean, you can tell that someone's doing an accent and they're not, actually from America. But it's just so terrible. And the monster's like a big, just a tall rubber looking thing. And, like I said, it's straight to DVD from Apex, so you know what you're getting, but it's pretty awful.
Well, I've not had the pleasure. Is anyone else?
No. What year did you say it was from?
95.
95. Right. I see it here. Yeah, I'm just going to look on IMDb and see.
How about you?
I saw it, but it's been a long time. I can barely remember it. I mostly just remember the cover art.
Yeah, it's just got a picture of the monster's face.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was made in the UK, yes.
Oh, was it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Filmed in the Forest of Dean.
Oh, really? That's quite close to where I live.
You should have been in it.
I should have been. The bastards didn't invite me. So, is there anything else you want to say about that little turd?
Ew.
What?
No, I mean...
Gross.
Gross, what?
No. I mean, considering how bad it is, it's very, very awful. But considering the two before it, I mean, it's considering what my number 2, my number 1 is. I mean, I would recommend it only on that strength, but other than that, no, I would avoid this one like the plague.
Okay, right. Well, thank you, Joseph. I'm just going to my number 3, and I kind of went quite mainstream with my picks. And to be honest, I'm not entirely sure they're not the worst horror films in the world. They just happen to be films that I've watched recently, or apart from my number 1, which is the worst film in the world. But I've watched these fairly recently, and they just didn't hold up for me. And my number 3 is Poltergeist 2.
God.
What? Let me have my say. Let me have my say.
No.
And then you come back.
No.
Stop interrupting me, Chuck.
Yeah. Basically, I really liked the first Poltergeist movie. It's obviously a bit of a weird sort of love child between Steven Spielberg and Tobe Hooper, but the follow up, apart from the main villain, who I thought was fantastic, I just thought it was such a soulless rehash of the first film. Which it just didn't really work. It didn't really work at all, and it topped off with all that kind of basically religious claptrap of the grandma turning up at the end, floating in white angel wings, and this kind of overblown special effects laden ending. And I thought there was a good story in it, with like the religious community that was basically killed by the mentalist vicar or whatever he was, but it just didn't. To me, it was just the archetypical soulless, crass remake. Not remake, sequel, and I thought it was pants. So there you go. But I presume
You thought it was what?
pants.
Pants.
Pants?
As
It
in
means rubbish.
rubbish.
Oh, okay.
Sorry. It's just but I take it you three want to fall on the sword.
Well, I don't think it's great or anything, but if I were going to pick a Poltergeist movie, it would definitely be part 3.
Well, I haven't seen part 3 for a
I
long
like
time.
that one.
I love all the Poltergeist movies.
Bruce.
I mean, like I say, these aren't the worst films, but this is apart from my number 1, which I think is probably one of the worst films I've ever seen. But my number 3 and 2, my big number 2, are kind of films which, I don't hate, but I do think, are bad for a number of reasons, and the ones I've seen recently. So, but I mean, do you love this film? Do you think it's a fantastic film?
I think it's good. I wouldn't say fantastic, but I really enjoy it. Yeah.
Oh boy, here we go.
Vibrating.
You're buzzing.
Yeah. Did you not like the bit where Craig T. Nelson takes his shirt off? No.
No, but I can see why you might like that.
But I mean, the vomit monster is good fun, and I love the family ties sha-la-la-la ending. I think it's cheesy enough to be entertaining. Yeah, I do agree that Kane is a scary villain.
Well, he's the best thing in it, but he's just a shame the movie isn't better. If the movie was better, then I think it could have been really good. But it was. I'm sorry, it just didn't do it for me. It didn't stand up. I remember liking it when I saw it many years ago, and I was quite not excited but interested in watch it again. And I watched it, and I thought, actually, this really isn't very good at all. So, but that's obviously, what can I say? That's our opinions, isn't it? And so I think to underline our opinions, we should possibly go to our next thing, which is. He's a cat. So Nathan, what's your big number 2?
My number 2 is Birdemic. No, I love it. So don't get me wrong on that one. Of course, I adore this movie, and I think it's fantastic in a bad way. But, I mean, if you look at the production values, it's pretty awful. It's got some of the worst CGI I've ever seen outside of Suburban Sasquatch. I love the birds in the movie. There's one scene where our heroes have wire hangers, which is a big no-no.
Yes.
And they all go outside, and the birds attack them, I guess, so to speak. But really, the attack is the birds just superimposed CGI on a screen with their wings flapping, and our heroes swinging at the air with the coat hangers. They don't actually hit one of the birds. I guess that wasn't in the budget, I guess. And it's one of those movies where, they didn't have good sound. So anytime the camera changed angles, you could hear the noise. Like, you could tell, like, the camera, is when it switches angles, like, the noise, the background noise doesn't match. So, it's sort of like one of my movies. They had about the same kind of sound that I did when I made my films. And I don't know, I just think that it's hilarious. And there's one scene where the hero, he's in his office and they're talking about some bonus that they're going to get or something. And the guy says something like, and we made $1 billion. And then everybody starts clapping, and this clapping scene goes on for like minutes. It's like, okay, you've clapped. I mean, how are your hands not red by now of all this clapping? And at some point, the camera even cuts away, and you could tell they stopped clapping and they're starting up again. I mean, you have to see it to know what I'm talking about. But everybody should rush out immediately to see Birdemic. And like I said, I did choose it for this, but it doesn't mean I don't love it, because I do. I love it very, very dearly. It's very close to my heart. Okay, well, I would agree with that. I think it's interesting because isn't he doing a sequel, or hasn't he already filmed a sequel? And he said something about it, and I can't wait.
Well, it's one of those things. It's difficult if you then start to try and second guess or create something by trying to do something purposely bad, which is essentially what trauma movies are, aren't they? And they, to my mind, they don't work. And sometimes the pure joy of bad horror movies is when someone thinks they're making a masterpiece, and they're making something like Fatal Frames, or that's when. Which I might have to pick Fatal Frames at some point for one of my picks. What?
Yes, there is a Birdemic 2, The Resurrection, coming in 2012, and the IMDb has it listed under the categories of romance and thriller.
Okay, right.
Do you know the lead character in Birdemic is following us on Twitter?
Exactly, yes, which may mean he's listening to this.
Hey, Alan.
Rod, the guy plays Rod. Yeah.
Alan Baugh, yeah. I see him here.
Okay. Well, I loved Birdemic. I thought it was great fun. But how about you guys?
Yeah, I like the way they used the latest Commodore 64 technology for the CGI effects. Yeah.
Great.
Well, I'd love to know what the actors and actresses thought, because obviously when they were doing all that kind of shake, with the waving their arms, and they must have been told we're going to put the birds in later, and they must have been expecting at least Sci-Fi Channel CGI. And what they got was something very different. But that was.
But I was wondering when I was watching it, is it deliberately bad?
Yeah, I don't know. I've kind of got the impression that he thought it was. I think he's, it's a bit like what was the director of Troll 2? He started
Claudio Fragrasso.
Yeah, he started off saying, but this is not a masterpiece, but this is supposed to be serious. Then when he realised everyone was laughing at it, he said, oh, well, actually, it was supposed to be a joke all along. But and so I do wonder if that's the same with Birdemic. But then, of course, it'd be interesting to see how the sequel works out. But I think it's a very worthy pick, Nathan, so thank you for that. Anything else you want to say about Birdemic?
No. I mean, there's way too much to say, but, I think I said the gist of it.
Okay, right. Well, a little bit of this for Erik.
He's a cat.
Well, again, it's another controversial pick, I'd say, but it goes to Eli Roth's Cabin Fever, which is a film that came along in a blaze of hype over here anyway. People were saying it was sort of the best horror film in decades, and I went to see it and I was expecting something really disturbing, kind of a mix of maybe the flesh-eating virus aspect of Outbreak with the cabin in the woods ethos of Evil Dead, and what I got was I just thought it was vastly overrated. I thought the indie style comedy inserts were really out of place. I remember I haven't seen it since I saw it in the cinema because I disliked it that much, but I remember there was a kid with a mullet doing sort of slow motion kung fu, and I remember the wacky policeman and the obnoxious characters in the cabin. It reminded me a bit of another film I saw that I really disliked. Again, I think is a controversial opinion, but Dead End, that film with Lin Shaye in it, and
it's not a controversial opinion with me. I hated Dead End.
I hated Dead End. That played as the surprise film at the Horrorthon in Dublin one year, and I just thought it was ghastly. I mean, and I think Cabin Fever suffers the same problem in that it's trying to have that sort of indie movie quirky sensibility, and it just filling the screen with sort of obnoxious characters, and there's nothing to grasp onto. There's no sort of realistic motivations or anything behind anything anyone does, and I mean, I'm not a hater of Eli Roth by any means. I mean, I know it's quite easy to sort of slag him off, but I quite liked the two Hostel films, and I thought he was a welcome enough presence in Piranha 3D and Inglourious Bastards, so I have nothing against him personally, but I just thought Cabin Fever, probably because it came with so much hype, I thought it was just incredibly crap, basically. Now, maybe I need to see it again, because as I said, I only saw it the once, and that was back in, was it 2004, 2005 when it came out? So maybe I need to give it another chance, but I remember I just absolutely hated it at the time.
Okay, right. Well, how about you guys? What about you, Nathan? Are you a fan of Cabin Fever?
I am. I really enjoyed Cabin Fever.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay.
What about you, Joseph?
Yeah, when I saw it at the theater, I kind of liked it. When I saw it again on video, I didn't really care much for it. I thought it was, like Erik said, a lot of the comedy was really obnoxious and out of place, and it had some good scenes and stuff that I liked. But I don't know. I thought the characters were dumb. I mean, that whole, where she's shaving her legs, even though she knows that she has this kind of flesh-eating virus attached to her. I mean, what is up with that? I don't get that. Mm-hmm. But I don't know. I don't know. It's not a movie. I don't hate it, but I'll never go out of my way to watch it ever again.
What about the sequel?
No, I haven't seen it, and I'm not interested.
I wasn't mad. I thought the sequel was an improvement, but I still didn't like it because, again, I thought it had that quirky indie humor thing that I don't like.
Well, it's kind of weird with the sequel because it's Ty West, isn't it, who did The Innkeepers and The House of the Devil? But isn't Cabin Fever 2 even more sort of over the top, gory, which isn't what House of the Devil or Innkeepers is like at all, is it?
No, it's complete stylistic departure from his other films. Yeah,
because The Innkeepers is another film I watched recently. I got that on Blu-ray, and although it's an incredibly slow burn, I really like that film, and I like House of the Devil as well, which again is incredibly slow burn. So I couldn't really get my head around how somebody like Ty West, who made two films where not very much happens really at all, to making some kind of high gore sequel, but. But yeah, just my thoughts are just very quickly, exactly like yours, Eric. I went to see it at the cinema expecting something completely different because it was sold as a horror movie, as in a scary horror movie, wasn't it? It was kind of it was hyped up as this kind of like a scary movie. And when I went to see it, it was a horror comedy and a kind of gross out horror comedy, and it was completely not what I was expecting at all, and it was completely missold.
That's what I thought, yeah.
And that's why it kind of I didn't, I think that's why I was prejudiced against it, because it was completely not the movie I paid however many pounds to go and watch at the cinema. So yes, a very valid number 2. And Joseph, I'll give you a little bit of
He's a cat.
My number 2 is from 1986. It's called Gourmet, Zombie Chef from Hell, and that's Goremet. See the pun there. This is basically grade Z. I mean, I wouldn't even give it that. It's grade Z, grade whatever comes after Z. There's got to be something. They can invent something. It's schlock. It's basically this guy, he's a cannibal, in like 1386 or 1385. And he gets this curse put on him, and he sleep. I can't really remember. I think he sleeps for 600 years, and he wakes up in 1986. So, and after the curse has been lifted, but I think one of the stipulations is that he has to keep, feeding on blood or to, sustain himself. So he opens a seafood restaurant and basically kills and cooks people to kind of serve to his customers. I don't get that because I know he had to eat them to survive, I think. But I think people accidentally eat these people, and then it the word gets out there, and now his restaurant's a hit. And it kind of sounds like a comedy, and I guess in a way it is, but it's not really funny. I mean, it's so awful, it's so dull, and I mean, it's basically people standing in one room through the whole movie, and it's like someone will be standing there, the main character who's the cannibal, he'll stand there, and then someone else will walk into that room and say, "Hi, Goza, how are you doing?" "Oh, I am doing well. Would you like something to eat?" "Yes, I am hungry." And it goes on, and they wear these really gaudy Hawaiian shirts, and the fashions are just hideous. I mean, not even in a good, like, Erik kind of way. It's so boring. I think the best thing about this film, the best thing about this film is the weird, the weird VHS artwork. It's got the rubber hand, like the prop gag, like hand, like being cut off, severed, garnished with a bunch of seasons and spices. But wow, this is a really, really abysmal film.
I've not seen it.
Be warned. Yeah.
Erik, have you had the pleasure?
No, never seen it. Never even heard of it until Joseph mentioned it earlier in the week.
Yeah. What about you, Nathan? You seen it?
I've wanted to see it, but I just haven't watched it yet.
Okay. Well, again, we are, consider yourself pre-warned, so it's probably not a film I'm going to rush out to see. But is there anything else you want to tell us about Gourmet, Chef from Hell?
I've always wondered if Gourmet from Alt Horror got his name from this. He insists he didn't, but I think he did.
Did he? Okay. Yeah,
he would probably hate to hear that.
Well, that's kind of where not where myself and Joseph met, but we used to go on the alt horror news groups way back in the mist of time.
Like in the 90s, late 90s.
Yeah, they're still going, aren't they? I haven't looked them up.
I got on there like 3 years ago.
Yeah,
and there's like a couple of people. I think who is it? It was Walpurgis, I think is his name. Is that how you pronounce it?
Yeah.
I think I might have seen him. It's one of those regulars that I saw in the 90s were still there. Yeah. But it's pretty desolate.
I was on there back then, and y'all just ignored me. Don't think I've forgotten that.
Who are you again?
I don't remember what my name was on there now.
Well,
and Joseph actually, and I remember this very clearly. Joseph was a smartass to me too, and this is before I actually knew him in person. He was known as the New Flesh back then, and I said something, and he came back with a very rude, smartass answer.
Ooh. Well, the thing was, it was like the those news groups were a bit like the old, Wild West, weren't they? They were completely, it was flame wars and trolls and all sorts of things going on all the time.
Yeah, I made the mistake of saying I won't be around for a while. I'm having family issues, and then people pretty much, ripped me to shreds. Bunch of those wrestling trolls that used to be on there.
Yeah, Smiley.
I was not one of them.
Smiley.
Yeah. Erik, did you ever go on the groups?
No, I didn't have internet at home until a few years after that, so
Right,
I would have had to do it at work, which would have been unethical.
Not to keep the off-topic subject going, but I get a kick out of these trolls. I mean, who spends like 8 to 12 hours a day just constantly, tormenting these news groups and stuff? Just, I mean, what's the point? I mean, that is like a tremendous waste of time.
Well, it's kind of
my favorite. Oh, sorry, Justin.
No, carry on.
I was just going to say my favorite was on the news group. I posted once about how I hate when you were in the video store and you'd read the back of a VHS box and it gives away the whole movie in the ending. Like there was one, Sleepaway Camp Part 3, I believe, basically tells you who the final girl is and what happens at the end. So I made a topic like, does any other VHS do this? And then somebody responded to me with like, well, unlike you, I don't stand like a moron in a video store and read the back of boxes. And I'm like, so what do? Do you just look at the cover and take them up to the counter like, oh, the cover of this looks good?
So, but after that, you and Joseph were firm friends, weren't you?
Yeah, that was probably you, New Flesh. Stink
No,
hot.
actually, it couldn't have been me. I always read the covers, so that wasn't me.
But it just reminds me of...
Running.
Yeah, but it's still going on, isn't it? I mean, there was a story in the paper in Britain about this young bride-to-be who was being tormented by this online stalker, sending her kind of like... coming across like serial mom with like kind of pussy willow texts and things like that. And she eventually traced it, and it was her fiance who was sending it to her in the same house. And he was outed as being her stalker, even though he was living with her.
Oh my gosh.
Which is
weird.
bizarre, isn't it? But there you go. So, but yes, well, I'm sure we'll come back and talk about alt horror, and of course, maybe if you, we'll get to feedback a little bit later. But if you're an old alt horror flame, then let us know. But I'm just going to move on now to my number 2.
He's a cat.
Well, with my number 2, it's a case of being careful for what you wish for, which, and the reason for that is for many, many years, myself and many other people were hoping that Dario Argento would finish his Three Mothers trilogy. And obviously Suspiria came out in, was it 77, and Inferno in 1980. So it was a long wait for him to finish the Three Mothers trilogy. And then in the last few years, we got what we hoped for, except we didn't get what we hoped for. We got Mother of Tears, which, we're talking about George Romero, sort of, a fall from grace. But if anyone's fallen harder, and much, much harder, it's probably Dario Argento, who, and I hate to say this because I love Dario Argento's movies. A lot of his earlier movies, up until Phenomena and Opera, I think are fantastic. But and I hate to say this, but he is a bit of a laughingstock now. And the Three Mothers, this sequel, the close to the Three Mothers trilogy, Mother of Tears, was, is a, there's bits of it I like, but it's cheap, it's nasty. It's better than Giallo, from what I hear, and I still can't bring myself to see that. It's probably better than Dracula 3D, but I thought it was, to be honest, I'd much rather he hadn't made this movie and we just left us with Suspiria and Inferno, and we could have actually conjured up a third part in our minds. But Dario Argento, unfortunately, kind of spoilt it to some degree. He won't spoil those movies ever, but he basically finished their trilogy with a turd, as far as I'm concerned. So my number 2, quite literally, is Dario Argento's Mother of Tears. Any dissenting views, or?
I found it entertaining. I do agree that it is bad, and I'm astounded that he didn't even try to replicate the look of Suspiria and Inferno, which have a very distinctive feel to them. But I wasn't expecting anything, after things like The Card Player and Phantom of the Opera. I knew that Mother of Tears wasn't going to be anything more than what it turned out to be. So I wasn't disappointed, I have to say.
I think he was hampered a little bit by the budget, obviously, that if he had a bigger budget, he could have done more with it. But it's just such a missed opportunity. And it's almost, he doesn't have any faith in his own talent anymore.
What do you think of his depiction of goth culture?
Well, Well, yeah, I mean, it's just ridiculous. You know, you're going from, you know, in Inferno, the Mother of Tears is played, I can't remember her name, but this very beautiful, kind of ethereal-looking model with very startling blue eyes. And in that's Inferno, and in Mother of Tears, she's, you know, this kind of, this bimbo with, you know, plastic boobs. You know, and it's just bizarre. I just don't understand, unless he really dislikes the genre. He's doing this on purpose. I don't know. You know, it's strange. But how about you, Joseph and Nathan? What are you any great love for Mother of Tears?
I haven't seen it.
I don't really actually remember. I watched it and I thought it was boring, and I thought it was like a not a fitting part of that whole trilogy, and so I've pretty much forgotten it.
Okay. Well, there you go. So, I mean, that's our number twos, and of course, if those are our number twos, now we're going to get on to the real crud. So, Nathan, what has made your number one top shit list?
I don't think I'm actually alone with my number one. I think it's shared by at least a few of you guys. The worst movie in the world is Night of Horror. Like, I have never, ever seen another movie that's come close to being as bad as this movie. And its problem is it is unbelievably boring. I mean, I can't. I mean, I tried to watch it with my friend Melissa, and she was asleep in like 10 minutes. Like, I had to actually wake her up so we could watch something else. It's that bad. But, you know, I mean, it's just like 4 people. I mean, they go on a camping trip, and the box, if you look at the VHS box, makes it look like it's going to be a zombie movie or something. And yeah, these zombies show up, but they don't do much, but just stand there and talk to them for a couple of minutes, and then they go on their merry way. I mean, it's really bad sound, picture, and there's at one point, there's like a piece of black tape or something on the camera lens that stays there for like, I don't know, 20, 30 minutes, and like nobody bothered to even like look for, I guess, or even notice when they're filming the movie. And there just seems to be really long scenes of nothing happening, like I don't know, 10 minutes of an RV driving down the road, or, you know, 10 minutes of a conversation in a basement that looks like it's supposed to be a bar, but I mean the conversation is just so boring. It's really, really, really bad.
I've not seen it. I must admit, it's so.
Oh God, Justin, you're missing out on the worst movie you'll ever watch.
That should be a rite of passage. Everyone who calls themselves a horror fan should at least watch this once.
I should
watch it once.
Have it? Who else has made it the number one? Was it you, Joseph?
Yes.
Do you want to talk about it now, or do you want to talk about it? We might as well talk about it now, aren't you?
I mean, I'll go ahead. I mean, He's not kidding. I mean, this is the worst movie ever. It's not just the worst horror film ever made. It's the worst movie ever made. I mean, it's so bad. I mean, that scene where they're in the makeshift bar that's actually a basement, you know, if you're going to, you know, focus on this mundane conversation about, I think it was something about how this one guy wants this other guy to be in a band again because they were like, you know, they were just, you know, big and famous back in the day. But if you're going to focus on this totally mundane conversation for 10 minutes, you know, you could probably focus on their faces. All you see is their backs, like leaning against the bar, like sitting on a bar stool. And it's the back of their heads, like you can hear them like, and that's how the sound is. I mean, it's so muffled. And, you know, like Nathan said, probably the best actor in the film is that piece of tape that gets stuck to the camera. I think I read that it was on there for like 23 minutes before it finally disappeared.
Wow.
I mean, basically, these people they get in this RV and they drive into the woods, and there's like these Confederate soldier zombie like thing, and they're standing in like some kind of floodlight, and they're like, "We're dead," and then they just walk away, and then they're like, "Oh, okay," and then they just go camping anyway. I mean, it's so awful. I mean, I dare anyone to watch this that hasn't. I dare them.
And there's like the scene, because the main guy has a crush on one of the women that they're camping with. And like, here's what's so stupid. The Confederate soldiers, the dead ones, show up and like they're like, yeah, we're dead. And then there's like 10 minutes of stock war footage that we're forced to sit through. And then I guess they're trying to say that their captain is not resting because his head is separated from his body. So the group of campers, I guess, have to like reunite the head with the body. And it turns out one of the women in a past life was the general or whoever. It was his wife. And our main guy, upon learning this, he gets jealous because he likes her now. And they find the skull, and the main guy's narrating it, and he looks at the skull, and he's like, I was filled with jealousy. He had her first. I mean, what the hell is that?
And not only that, but this main guy who likes this girl, she looks like a slapped ass. And she's so ugly. God, she looks like Olive Oil's like ugly duckling sister.
Is this the film that's got? Is it Jamie Gillis in it? Is it the porn actor?
No. It's got no one even remotely famous.
In it.
Right.
And
okay.
there's like one scene where she actually reads an entire Edgar Allan Poe story on camera.
Oh, really?
I mean, like, you know, you just have to sit there and you listen to her, and she's got such a monotone voice. I mean, oh, God. I mean, and what's crazy is what Joe and I have just talked about. That's the whole movie. That's it. There's nothing else to it.
Nathan, Erik, have you had the pleasure?
I have had the pleasure, yes, and I was considering putting it at number one myself, but because Joseph and Nathan were putting it at number one, I went for something different. But it is as awful as they say. I mean, we say the biggest crime is for a film to be boring, and boy, is this boring. Unbelievably so. And the thing is, it gets a big write-up in Stephen Thrower's book, Nightmare USA, and he manages to defend it.
What?
Yes.
What's he saying?
I can't recall exactly what he was saying, but he does sort of say it has some redeeming features. I couldn't find any myself. I mean, that opening scene you say where they're sitting in the bar, which is someone's basement. I mean, the camera doesn't even move. It's just one continuous sort of shot of the two men at the bar with their muffled voices. And then there's I remember lots of scenes of ghostly Confederate soldiers just giving monologues that are really, really dull.
Well, Stephen Throwpillow sounds like a class guy if he likes this film.
Did it get a release in the UK and Ireland?
I don't recall. No.
There's also so many scenes where the RV's like, you know, after it breaks down in the woods or wherever they are at the battleground, like for 1 second it's like daytime, and then it's nighttime, and then it's daytime again, and then it's nighttime again.
Yeah.
Oh God! And what about the whole thing is their RV is supposed to have broken down in the road, and they're all sitting there, you know, I guess kind of in silence, and then all of a sudden everybody just jumps forward, and then it's like a 5 seconds later you hear the brake slam. So it's like they didn't even time that right. Yeah.
It sounds like it could have been made by Doris Wishman, but it wasn't.
Was it funny at all?
No.
Really, if you watch it, you're going to be so bored. It's not enough to find funny. I mean, we're kind of laughing about it now, but I mean, it's not even funny. It's just really, really bad and boring.
Right.
See, this is the thing, though. You hear a lot of these people like, I saw this movie called, I don't know, name something kind of like The Stepfather 2, and I thought it was one of the worst movies ever made. And anyone who says stuff like that needs to sit down and watch this, and then they can never say anything as silly like that ever again.
Although, I'm looking at the IMDb listing for it now, and the latest user review has given it 9 out of 10. Somebody called Trauma Freak from Tallahassee in Florida.
Yeah.
It's got a Trauma Freak. Then they already handicapped, aren't they, when it comes to making...
True.
Yes. So. Right, well, thank you.
The director actually did go on to edit 2 movies that I actually liked. Nightmare Sisters and Mutant Species, so I guess he had some kind of career.
Good for you, Tony Malinowski.
I don't know how, but somehow.
Right, well, that's Night of Horror, so, well, thank you for bringing that into our lives. Erik, what's your number one?
Okay, my number one, I don't know if you've seen it, is a film called Creature of Darkness. Now, the only reason I rented this from the video shop was because I feel guilty a lot of the time that I don't watch a lot of sort of modern stuff. I mean, I see the bigger films get released in the cinema, but when it comes to straight to video, I'm not watching as much as I should. So I rented this one out, and it just reinforced my theory that all modern horror is shite. I'm sorry. Okay, that's a sweeping statement. There is a lot of good stuff out there, but this really, really sort of put me in a bad mood. It's really boring. It's about some kids who go out into the desert in these sort of little go-kart things to have a weekend away, and they encounter an alien, and that's all the plot there is to it. It's really, really boring. It stars Devon Sawa, or if that's how you pronounce his name. He was in the first Final Destination. He was the hero as such, and he was in Idle Hands as well, which are both films I really liked. But in this one, he's piled on the weight, kind of in me-styley, and he looks kind of like chubby Corey Haim. It's all the characters in it are dislikable, which again is a problem with a lot of these films. It has all the production. It has better production values, I'll give it, than Night of Horror or Night to Dismember, but I mean, it does look like a sci-fi movie. There's, odd bits of CGI. There's a nice rubbery monster for close-ups, but for sort of long shots, it's really, really dodgy CGI that's only slightly above, Birdemic levels. And there's absolutely crap spaceship effects sort of towards the end of the film. Problem with the film is not the effects, though. It's just that it's really, really boring. It's all set in one location, and there's no sort of variety. And it's filled with, apart from the chubby Corey Haim lookalike, it's filled with generic, Los Angeles types who all look the same. All the girls look the same. All the guys look the same. And I was just bored to tears, and it goes on for an hour and a half. So Creature of Darkness, it's called, from 2009. I would avoid it.
Okay, well, considered warned, because I did wonder what happened to Devon Sawa, because he just kind of vanished, didn't he? But
he was really good in those two films, I thought, Idle Hands and Final Destination. So,
but he sounded like he was just he went somewhere and ate some pies.
He did.
Yes. So, how about you two? Have you seen the film?
No,
it's not one.
But I think Creature of Darkness might be I think it might be an Asylum release.
That would
explain things.
Let me have a look and see.
Well, just what you
I'm not 100% sure, but I think I've heard of it, and I think it was an Asylum film.
I think there are some good. There are good films being made now, aren't there? Sort of
there are. I apologise for that sweeping statement. I mean, when I think of things like Lake Mungo and the stuff that isn't getting theatrical releases is still really good. But I'm referring to sort of just the generic stuff you might find in the local video shop. I mean, a lot of it is dross. And I think the problem is that there's so much stuff. I mean, there's still the same amount of good material coming out, but there's just a lot more trash coming out, and it's harder to find the good stuff.
So one film I did forget to mention, I think I mentioned it on the Body Count Continues sort of web forums, is the newish film Absentia, or which is really worth seeing. If any of you watched that yet?
No, it's on Netflix, so I mean it's one I really want to watch. I know it's on Netflix Instant, so I really need to get around to it.
Absentia?
Absentia, so yeah.
I thought it was Absentia.
Might be Absentia.
Yeah. Well, no. See, I pronounce words the way they're spelled, so I'll remember them.
All right.
But that's definitely worth watching, because that's kind of Lake Mungo-esque, and that was done with Kickstarter campaign. So it was done, people helped fund it, and I thought it was, it's very low budget, but it's really well done, I thought. So that's like a recommend. It's a slow burn, but quite very creepy sort of film. So there is kind of talent out there. But did you find if it was an Asylum picture?
I didn't. I couldn't find any information about it being an Asylum picture. No.
Eric, is the monster in that movie? Is it like a Cloverfield ripoff thing?
No, it reminds me more of what's that film? Is it Slithus or something like that? Okay. That kind of rubbery monster. Yeah.
I'm looking at a picture of Devon Sawa now. Wow, he's really ballooned up, hasn't he?
Yeah.
Well, so poor Devon and poor Russ for having to watch these films. But I'll just quickly do my number one. And one of my favourite films of all time, horror films of all time, is very unslasher-esque, but it's the 1963 adaptation of The Haunting. I think it's Shirley Jackson's movie, book, The Haunting of Hill House. And it's a masterclass by the director of Sound and Music, bizarrely, but a masterclass in tension and unseen menace with lots of shots of door handles turning very, very slowly and but lots of banging. So it's partly because they probably couldn't afford really flashy special effects, partly because it was made at a time when there wasn't CGI. But it was the remake they did in 1999 of The Haunting, and I still remember going to see that at the cinema because The Haunting has always been one of my favourite films, and I remember watching it with my parents back when I was younger, and it always stayed with me, and it really stands up now. But The Haunting was the most bloated, horrendous kind of remake that I've ever seen. I think it even worse than the Prom Night remake. Exactly, because it took something that was very artful, a bit like with Halloween. The Halloween remake took something that was very artful, very effective, very kind of streamlined, and turned it into, the most, it's basically something that was arranged over a very coke-fueled binge in Hollywood, just sort of, like a boozy lunch, and they decided, right, well, let's add loads of CGI ghosts and let's throw loads of money at this. And of course, what it ended up with was a completely unscary movie, which was just a special effects showcase, and it was like a Disney, a ride at Disneyland. And yeah, I just thought it was, for its big budget, for its big name stars, for its kind of CGI, it's essentially a soulless hack remake, and I hated it. So that's my number one worst movie of all time. Any opinions on that?
Only in agreement, yes. And that was definitely my worst cinematic experience because it was full of kids who just weren't concentrating on the screen, and I don't blame them. And they were talking and sort of running up and down the aisles, not giving a shit about anyone else in the cinema. But it was the one occasion where it just didn't bother me because the film was so bad I didn't care.
I liked it.
Oh, of course you did.
Did you really?
No, I prefer the original, of course, because I think the original does a lot more with less. Less is more. But, I mean, I liked the remake, too. I thought, it was visually entertaining.
But it wasn't scary, was it? There was nothing...
No, I didn't find it to be very scary, but...
How about you,
I
Joseph?
still enjoyed it.
I don't really remember it. I saw it when it came out on video, but it just kind of slipped my mind.
Well, I haven't seen it for 13... I haven't watched it since I saw it at the cinema, which was 13 years ago, and I still remember sitting there with my friend Laura, and we just looked at each other, and especially I think there was a scene in it where somebody's eyes behind a painting move and look around, which is so Scooby-Doo. It could have been fun, but we just looked at each other and just thought, wow, this is a real turd. But yes, those are our turds. They are our worst non-slasher horror movies. And I'm sorry, Nathan, I won't talk any more about poos or turds or...
I just think that word is very funny.
Okay. Well, from one turd onto another, or is it? We are going to move on to the feature presentation. And we have a very special feature for you this time. And the trailer for this film is almost as long as the film itself, so I have edited it down a little bit. But this is the trailer for A Night to Dismember.
What are you afraid of? You're perfectly safe here. Do I scare you? I'm going to take you on a journey of terror, as I describe a new movie. This movie will destroy the myths of all horror films. It will be an experience that will have its audience asking itself what has gone wrong in the world today. This film is called A Night to Dismember.
I hate them. I hate them. I wish they were dead.
From the cellar of the grave to the attic of the haunted, A Night to Dismember will stun and startle even those with the strongest will, who have no belief in the supernatural. A Night to Dismember will electrify you with its special effects and camera work. Its moments of raw psychological terror will have you quaking in your seat.
Vicky Kent is released from the asylum after being committed in 1981 after brutally butchering 2 local boys. Fast forward to 1986, Vicky's released into the care of her parents, much to the disgust of her brother and sister who want her sent back to the asylum pronto. However, is Vicky sane or still insane? And why are voices coming out of her hatbox? Gory murders, ugly couches, close-ups of walking feet and trippy visuals make this a night to dismember. A Night to Dismember, how can I describe this film? Well, it depends whether you've ever seen a Doris Wishman film before. Doris Wishman is a kind of one-of-a-kind director. She's actually a woman. She must have been, I think she was over 70 when she directed this movie, or maybe she wasn't over 70, but she was certainly middle-aged woman when she directed this movie. She's probably best known for the Chesty Morgan Deadly Weapon movies, which are, Chesty Morgan, if you don't know, was a model with massive bazungas, and in one of the films, I think it was either Secret Agent, was it 69? She uses either takes photos with her nipples or uses her guns or whatever. I haven't seen them for a long time. And so Doris Wishman kind of made these, is famous for making nudie films. Kind of, I guess, a contemporary of Herschel Gordon Lewis making those kind of movies. And A Night to Dismember was her attempt at basically making a horror movie in the wake of the huge financial success of Halloween. And it was made or started in 1979. And what Doris Wishman did, and this is why, again, if you've seen the film, the trailer is very different from the film, because what she used to do was make the trailer first to sell the film. And so a lot of what's in the trailer is not actually in the finished film, because 60 or sort of 40 or 60% of the film was destroyed by a disgruntled employee at some photo lab. So she was stuck with a film which is already probably pretty bad, and then had to finish it with no money. And so what she did was put in loads of outtakes and bits taken from some of her other movies and bits taken from the trailer, and added it all together into the most, basically complete and utter mindfuck. But bizarrely, we're talking about bad movies. I mean, this is, technically it's a pretty awful movie. You can probably hear from some of the things in at the beginning. It's completely mismatched. The music cuts in and out. It's very, very cheap, but it's almost hypnotic in its badness. It's by any stretch of the imagination, you could not call this a good movie. But there's something, it's so atrocious that it actually enters onto a different plane, I think, of consciousness almost, and it becomes almost art, I think, bizarrely. It's just bizarre. It's the strangest film. It makes no sense whatsoever, and I had to watch it. I've watched it 3 times, and I still don't really understand what's going on. Essentially, I don't think there was any sound films, so all of the voices sound like they've been done by 2 different people, and they use a kind of 1940s detective as a kind of a wraparound voiceover investigating these murders. It's bizarre. I'd just be interested to hear what you guys think about it. Eric, what were your thoughts on the Hatbox?
That's one of my favourite lines. The voice was coming from the Hatbox. This is my introduction to Doris Wishman. I'd never seen any of her other films before. And like you, I had to watch it multiple times to sort of get to grips with it, because there are parts of it I was like, what? Who's that? What's going on? It has flaws for sure, and you have to kind of keep in mind that she lost 40% of the film. So she had to kind of piecemeal it together and try and make it into a coherent narrative if possible. She doesn't succeed, but at least she tried. There are some good points. For starters, there's a scene where a figure comes out of a lake, dressed kind of like a zombie, I suppose. And I thought that was really effective. It reminded me of a Euro horror type scene, maybe something that Jean Rollin would do. I thought that was quite effective. I like the psychedelic imagery as well towards the end, where both Mary and Vicky are having sort of meltdowns or nightmares, and you get these kind of psychedelic screensaver type effects superimposed on the action. It's kind of like a 25p version of the Stargate sequence from 2001. I mean, there are some bad points, to be fair.
Just a couple.
Just a couple. The bad points do lend it a certain, uniqueness, I suppose. I mean, the narration is constant throughout the film. I mean, I think it's about 7 or 8 minutes before we actually hear a character on screen speak some dialogue. For the majority of the time, we see their lips flapping, but we don't hear what they're saying. Either it's narrated or it's just ignored. There's just that constant library music in the background, which again is another thing that's really bad but quite endearing, is the use of music in the film. It's at times incredibly inappropriate. There's a scene where Mary comes back to the house for the first time, or Vicky, comes back to the house for the first time after being released from the hospital. And I think it's supposed to be tense because Mary and Billy are looking out and scheming about what they can do to send her back to the hospital. But it's all underscored with what sounds like cheesy Bob Eubank type game show music. And then there's another scene where Vicky is having a tender moment with Frankie, who was her boyfriend before she was committed. And that's the music playing underneath that sounds like World War II action sequence music, And one of the things actually about the film that really made me laugh is I wonder, is it possible to die by accidentally falling on an axe? Does anyone know? Can you accidentally fall on an axe?
Well, that must be the most unlucky murderess, mustn't it? You had to your younger sister, although she looked older, with an axe, and then as you're leaving the bathroom, you slip, and not only you saddled with possibly the worst wig, most unconvincing wig ever worn, you fall on your own axe. I mean,
even worse than Jamie Lee's in Halloween 2.
I think it was.
I don't think that's a bad wig.
No, neither do I. In fairness, neither do I.
What, you think it's a real hair?
I actually thought it was her real hair until y'all said it was a wig, and I went back and rewatched, and I was like, yeah, that is a wig, actually.
Because if it's not a wig, she has like about a sort of 2 centimetre high forehead. It just kind of looked like it slipped forward. It was like a bad wig, and she looks like she's about 12 as well. So they've just kind of, Doris had obviously brought in her niece or something to do that. But I've just got the little clip here of the hat box.
Oh, cool.
The voice seemed to be coming from the hat box.
Yes.
I mean, it's not a line you hear every day, is it?
It's not a line you hear every day.
There's some good gore in it as well, actually, in fairness. I mean, it's quite crude. Well, it's very crude, to be fair, and I don't think Tom Savini will be losing any sleep, but there certainly is plenty of gore. What lets it down slightly is the impact shots. I mean, somebody is sort of lightly tapped with an axe and it creates this gushing wound. Or there's sort of slightly a crest with a machete on the neck and their head flies off. It's quite funny. I mean, as you say, there's something hypnotic about it, even though it's not a very good film. I don't think it's one I'd be returning to after, watching it several times for this review. But I suppose I would put it on a par with something like, do you know that film Axe from the 70s? Yeah. Axe is probably a film with more narrative cohesion, but it has this sort of random make it up as we go along type feel to it as well. But I mean, I can't say I hated A Night to Dismember, and I think the title is fantastic. Yes. But again, you'd want to be sort of well used to bad movies when you approach this one, because if this is your first taste of grade Z movies, then I think you will get quite a nasty shock.
Yes, you should go in. Yeah. You should be pre-warned.
Yes.
And, how about you, Nathan? Had you seen A Night to Dismember before?
I had seen it before, but it had been a really long time ago. Rewatching it again, I thought it was absolutely hilarious. Like y'all said, the music had me cracking up. I mean, there's just music where it's supposed to be a tense scene, but like Erik said, it sounds like a game show or something. I mean, it's ridiculous. And I love the narrator who seems to think that the audience are morons, because there's a scene where, say Vicky, she is standing by water, and all of a sudden the narrator comes on and says, Vicky decided to go to the lake. Well, no shit. I mean, she's standing right there, of course. And then when the zombie's coming out of the lake, he says something like, and then something comes out of the lake. Well, yet again, we can tell that. And I love her striptease for him. where she has her leg
yeah.
up in the air and she's like kind of playing. It looks like she's playing her leg like it's a guitar or something.
And she's got dirty feet as well, isn't she? Which is kind of makes it even less erotic.
Yeah.
She has what? Sorry.
Dirty feet.
Oh
Yes.
yeah. Ew.
Yeah.
And then there's the dinner scene where she's
that's
acting crazy at dinner
Oh,
with the
love it.
ham.
Yeah.
And for one, though, first of all, what the hell kind of a family dinner is that? It's like a plate of cheese, a plate of ham, and a plate of loaf bread. I'm like, gee, thanks for putting the work in, Mom. I mean, why couldn't they just make their own sandwiches? Like, it's like the mom took the time to put each thing on a plate. Here you go. Here's dinner. But her, like, I love the lead girl, Vicky's acting. I mean, she's so, like, over the top with it. And the victims in this movie have all the urgency of a snail when somebody's coming at them with an axe. I love the fact that, especially at the end, like with the guy, I guess, the cab driver. And like this happens very often in this movie where somebody who is twice the size of the killer who's coming at them with an axe, and they just lay on the ground and like scream, like waiting to get hit with it. They don't put up any, they don't try to defend themselves at all.
It's it is bizarre. It's Joseph, what are your is it a film you'd seen before?
Yeah, I'd seen it a long time ago, but I've watched it twice this week, and boy, what a movie! Like Nathan said, I get a kick out of that narrator. He sounds like Peter Graves on like mushrooms or something. He's like, "Vicky, open the door," and he shows her like turning a doorknob.
Yeah.
And I mean, they had to have something in there. But one of the things I liked about the film, I thought was funny, is every time Vicky or someone, I mean, at this point, I don't know who was who, because I couldn't really keep up because obviously, as you said, the narration is so incoherent. But every time I think it's Vicky, I guess I'm just going to say it's Vicky. Every time she's tormented or stabbed at or prodded at, there's some kind of sex noise. There's one scene where she's getting like stabbed in the neck. She's like, ooh, ah, and she's supposed to be like being like someone's trying to kill her or something, and that goes on through the film. People in terror or having orgasms.
Well, that's just bizarre. I've got a little clip here, actually, of that. It's Mary, isn't it? Her dream sequence when she...
Yeah, that's it, the dream sequence. Yeah, I mean, it doesn't sound like she's getting hacked at with a weapon. It sounds like she's sitting on someone's face or something.
I think she is getting hacked at with a weapon in inverted commas.
Yes.
Yeah, that's what it sounds like, but...
If you watch that scene, it's her being attacked with a scalpel and all sorts of things, isn't it? Being stabbed through the neck, and she's going, ooh, ah, woo, like this. It's just so bizarre.
I mean, maybe you can make more sense of this, but I mean, this movie is just so, it's like Justin said, it's almost art. It's so incoherent. But I mean, I guess getting into spoiler territory, I mean, if you haven't seen the film, I don't even really know if I'm spoiling it because there's no real logic behind the film. But, I mean, who was the killer? I mean, the narrator said, I killed them. So, I mean, who was he? I mean, I kind of got lost. I mean, the movie's only like 1 hour long, and yet I was still lost. I mean, what was going on?
Mary
is the killer.
She framed...
See, I don't know. I don't remember. I mean, all I remember is him saying, I was the killer. I killed them all.
He says, I killed Vicky. I had to, or something.
In self-defense after that fantastic scene where they run up the same set of stairs about 1,400 times.
It's the same shot.
That's the problem. I don't remember who was who. I don't know most of the characters' names. I mean, you're basically watching a montage of like different clips thrown together, trying to make a movie, and it's such a failure. I mean, this is a movie that you really need to see. If you're a filmmaker, watch this so you can know not what to do, what not to do.
Well, yes, and also it's kind of that I just love that scene where Vicky's being chased by the detective and running up the stairs, and he keeps on catching her almost, and then the next shot, her a minute in front of him running up the same set of stairs again, and it's just padded out, and then she attacks him with an axe, and he kills her in self-defense, but he survives being hacked about 14 times with an axe, doesn't he? Which is bizarre.
There's another scene I liked where someone mentioned the music, the completely inappropriate music. There's a scene where I don't remember who it was. Again, someone was carrying like a suitcase, and they were just kind of walking. The music was like, bum, 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 It's so exciting, and yet it's just this boring scene. It's like it belonged in the streets of San Francisco and not in this someone carrying some luggage to the car or something.
Well,
I like the scene where the two boys in the high-waisted jeans are running past the same headstones in the graveyard, multiple times, and then start rolling around on the grass together.
Yeah, what was that about?
I don't know. It was very
It really looked like
suspicious.
a 70s gay porno, didn't it?
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah.
I like that line. What was it? Where she has her hallucination, like the erotic stuff, and it's something like Vicky felt like someone was making love to her in bright, flashing colors.
Well, it was. Somebody was making love to her, and the screen kept changing color.
Colors. Yeah. Oh, and the end was great. Oh, I was just going to say the end was awesome because I love the finally when, because the narrator throughout the whole movie knows stuff he shouldn't know. And at the end, he's like, how do I know all this? The entire family kept diaries.
I know.
Yes.
So Mary writing, I killed my family today.
That must have been it must have been a thrilling read. I mean,
I had a dream today about being made love to in bright flashing colors.
Yes. There was a voice coming from my hat box. Dear diary.
the writer had this stuff. Otherwise, we would never have known.
Yeah.
I know.
Joe, other scene. Sorry.
How about one of the couple of sex scenes where they just keep focusing on the guy's ass bouncing up and down over and over and over.
Well,
I'm no prude or anything, but I mean, come on, switch to something else finally. I mean, God, it's like that was obviously padding.
Yes.
No, that was his real arse.
No, that's what I'm saying.
Well, it's kind of. I tell you for me, the film, it was almost like a demented fairy tale, wasn't it? Because there was the evil brother and sister who, for no good reason apart from the mother, played by someone called Miriam Meth, as in the drug, was kind of like, Mary. The whole reason she kills all these people is because Vicky's come out of the asylum and her mother had been doting on her. Now Vicky's back. She's kind of now gone on another murder spree. And I love the scene when Vicky goes to her uncle's house. I mean, how many of the Kent brothers are there? Because this is what I had to watch it again to try and work it out. Because basically, some kind of curse. I don't know why there was a curse, but it was the Kent brothers, and there seem to be lots of these Kent brothers. And there was another Kent brother, wasn't there, who Vicky goes to visit, her uncle, and she knocks on the door, and he just basically tells her to go away, doesn't he? And says that all those Kent children they're all mental, and then they get killed in the car, and that's the scene that I thought was actually done almost quite well, when the killer attacks the people in the car, and she kind of basically punches her fist through the guy's chest and pulls out his beating heart, doesn't she?
I think doesn't she push her hand through the car seat as well as his chest?
Yes, exactly. which is very strange. But then the his wife is on the floor and she's going, rather than running away, she's just whimpering and go, and then of course Mary runs head over and it goes squish. And then another woman who looks like sort of a John Waters-esque sort of old lady, she chases her into a basement. And then she kind of hacks her with an axe, doesn't she? And it causes like a shaving nick on her neck. It's just, it's
that squish effect when she reverses over her aunt's head. Yeah, it sounds like it's been done with somebody's voice. The squish effect, or something.
Yeah.
There's also a scene where there's a scene where you can hear, I think it might be a dog or a dog barking or a cat meowing, and it's like roof roof, and it's obviously a human doing it.
What's crazy about the scene where she kills the people at the car is it shows the killer. I mean, it shows Mary like very obviously.
Yes.
I mean, it's her face and everything, and it's still being portrayed like a whodunit after that.
It's weird.
It's very strange. But the other thing, of course, we haven't spoken about is obviously Vicky was played by Samantha Fox, who was a very famous porn star, and obviously often got confused with Sam Fox, the pastry stunner from the UK. Yeah. But again, bizarrely, Doris Wishman was known for her nudie films, and so she has Samantha Fox, who was still making hardcore pornography way after this film as well, up until about 1984. And there's no nudity apart from the man's ass in the film at all, is there? and it's very coy, which is surprising, isn't it? I can see probably why Samantha Fox didn't go on to any more straight roles.
Yes, I think so. Yeah.
I did like her death scene was funny at the end when she went boss-eyed. I do always love it when victims go boss-eyed when they're being strangled, because it gives that nice little little full stop, doesn't it, to an ending. But I just thought that was strange. Also, I loved the scene when she comes out of the asylum. Why was she released? Because obviously she's still mental, even though she didn't kill anyone. And then she's sitting in the car and she steals her mother's scarf, doesn't she?
Yeah.
She pulls it off her neck and then goes, ha 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 ha, like that, and then starts... And you would have thought they might have thought, actually, maybe we should just turn around and put her back in the asylum.
Yes. I like the scene where the father, now this is probably something that can't really be described in the podcast, but where the father is looking around the house and they have the power cut, and just before he's killed, he does this scene where he's looking all around in every direction, including looking straight into the camera, really unconvincingly. He's looking around as if he's sort of spooked by something. Do you know the bit I mean?
Yes.
It's just before he's killed. It's quite hilarious about how bad his facial expressions are.
I love the scene where the wife, Miriam Meth, is in bed supposedly with the husband, but it's obvious that it's just a balloon with some grey pubes stuck on it. And it's not him sleeping in the bed at all. He's not there. It's obviously shot this without him being there, and it doesn't. It's so bad that it's got the head, but there's not. They hadn't actually put a body in the bed, I don't think. So what you had was this kind of disembodied, sort of pube balloon next to Miriam lying there. It's just
there's another sentence you don't hear every day.
What's that?
Disembodied pube balloon.
Yes. Another scene that I love, and this is obviously one of the ones that she, because it starts this whole montage of murders, doesn't it? Which it starts with the axe murder in the bath, and then it cuts to another husband, which is obviously one of the Kent brothers, who from one of Doris Wishman's films from the 60s, because he walks in a mod suit, doesn't he, with almost like a bowl cut. And he says his wife Lola was going out for her evening stroll, and you see Lola outside in this very revealing negligee walking through the woods, practically with her boobs out, and it's like she's out for her evening stroll.
Just like Manuela in Bloody Moon.
Exactly, that's what I thought. Yeah. Yes, and probably my favourite bit of the whole movie is when the killer decapitates somebody, and the severed head is stuck to the axe. And they're shaking the axe, trying to shake the head off. And that was just pure genius. And also that bizarre scene where she decapitates the two lovers, and the head is in the fireplace, burning away, not looking realistic at all. And yeah, it's just a very, very strange, very, very strange film. But one of the things that what I love about this film so much, and in fact is far more actually entertaining than the film, was the commentary on the disc. Did you any of you guys get to listen to the commentary?
I did, yes.
Yes.
No.
Very good.
Well, let me just, if you didn't hear it, I've just got it's just a minute, because just to give you a taster, and this is on the Elite release. This is Doris Wishman herself with Chuck, her cameraman, discussing at the beginning. This is the beginning of the commentary.
I'm Doris Wishman, producer and director of A Night to Dismember. Now, this picture was really, really made with love, care, and not Eastman color, but Wishman blood. And next to me, I have Chuck Smith, C. Davis Smith. Don't correct me, Chuck. I know your name. Chuck Smith was the cameraman for 17 of my films.
Wonderful films.
Wonderful. Chuck, will you stop interrupting me, for God's sakes? Chuck and I had many, many disagreements. And, but we got along, I would say, fairly well. However,
Doris,
Chuck, will you keep quiet?
I don't remember this movie opening this way.
I'll explain it after I have my say, okay?
Okay.
So, you've got to watch it again. If you watch that film, watch it with the commentary, because the commentary is hilarious. It's just, it's Doris and Chuck bickering half good-naturedly and half
There's some great bits where he just becomes exasperated with her, and she says something like, "Oh, my films are great, aren't they?" And he goes, "Yes, Doris, your films are really good."
I just like you know, I love her voice, and I love, you know, she obviously, what a character. And of course, sadly, she passed away in 2005, I think, was it? Or was it
2002.
2002. So actually, it's the year after. Well, I don't know when the commentary was recorded, but the Elite disc came out in 2001. I'm not sure if it's still available, but that commentary is hands down the best audio commentary I've ever heard, just because for sheer entertainment value. He just kind of, you know, he's winding her up the whole time, quite good naturedly. And she's, you know, it's just really good fun. So
as I was listening to it, I don't know what Doris Wishman looks like, but in my head, I was picturing Jan Terry. That's what I imagined she looked like. Yeah.
Well, you know, Miriam Meth was her sister.
Really?
Yes.
Oh.
So yeah. So
I'll give you an indication.
Yeah, I mean, I think Doris Wishman probably did some of the voices in the film, certainly the female voices, because, like I say, it's kind of strange because, you know, if you watch the trailer, we watched a bit of we heard some of the trailer, and there's loads of stuff that's obviously in the trailer that's not in the film, and some of this, so it kind of basically shows in some ways that Mary gets possessed, and that's why she goes on this killing spree. But there are scenes, like, for instance, with people being chased with knives and women running downstairs, people who aren't in the finished film. And there's a scene in a big in a lounge with quite a few people and loads of dry ice. So I think, and also scenes where people were actually speaking dialogue. So it was obviously going to be a quite a different film. And I think for us, watching the film now, and for the beauty and the horror that is A Night to Dismember, then we're lucky that it did happen. But I think it probably would have been quite a different movie. Although, if you've ever seen a Doris Wishman movie, they are, you know, I kind of guess, you know, if you've ever seen a Herschel Gordon Lewis movie, then it's similar to, you know, to that. They come very much from the same film, you know, school of filmmaking, I think. But yes, it's a very difficult film to describe without actually living through it, isn't it?
Yes.
I mean, is there anything else?
Well, I'll say one thing about it. It doesn't look like an 80s film. No. When in that opening sequence, I thought looked very like a 60s film to me.
Well, some of it was like stuff like the shot of her lounge and the sofa was from the 1960s and things like that. So there were bits.
Oh, right.
Some of our other films, I'd say.
Yeah, there's quite a few bits put in from the other films.
I see. That's how. Well. Okay, that makes sense.
Certainly with the two boys when they're being chased, that looks like it was. I think it was filmed in 1979, and it looks like it, doesn't it? It looks like 1979. And the rest of the film looks, and I think basically it was filmed. A lot of it was filmed in 1979. Then it got destroyed, so it took her 4 years or whatever to finish it. And she did shoot some other stuff, but then used bits from other older movies to add in to pad it out and to try and make some sense. I did love the bit when Vicky puts all that makeup on, doesn't she? You know, she sits in her sister's. Mary's so mean to her. It's you know, it is what it is.
Well, the thing is, her sister Mary is really mean to her. Like, she rips up a picture of Vicky's boyfriend and, like, gets in her face about it. So Mary shows nothing but contempt for Vicky ever since she gets back home. And then there's that scene where Vicky finds out, you know, that her brother Billy was the one that tried to scare her at the lake. And Mary's in there laughing with Billy and plotting. And the voiceover says, Vicky is sure that Mary had nothing to do with it. I'm like, why would you not even think she did? She's nothing but mean to you.
Yeah, I know. And then later, when the figure approaches her bed wearing the mask, can she not just put two and two together and twig that it's Billy again?
Yeah, I mean, she figured it out, and then it's like she forgot.
Yeah. It's like Wonder Woman used the lasso of truth to make her forget.
Yes.
I'm still trying to think of all this stuff they're writing in their diaries. I should tease for the cop today.
Must have been very comprehensive, yeah.
Just a little burst of some music here. Because a game. This is the kind of game show.
That's the game show.
Isn't
That's
it?
what I was talking about. Yeah.
Yeah, which is just bizarre. But the
It's
thing
also
really
the same music they play when she's carrying. Like people are just doing mundane things like walking and stuff.
Yeah. It's just bizarre, isn't it? Because if you watch the film all the way through, and at the end it says music composed and directed by, and it's got a name, and it's it's almost not the London Philharmonic, but saying something from London. It's obvious that all this music, it was not composed for this film at all. It was all taken from other films, wasn't it? And it's all library music.
Yeah.
Can you imagine like an orchestra in London, sort of doing all this different music? And it is.
Yeah.
So, well, that is A Night to Dismember. Have we got anything else we want to say about it? I mean, I've got a little bit of background, but I think we've talked mostly, there's not a lot of background to this movie apart from what we've already spoken about. But is there anything else that we wanted to say about the film?
No.
No? Nathan?
Just that the detective really reminded me. Well, he was obviously very 80s because he had big 80s glasses. He reminded me of the nerdy guy from Electric Dreams. I think I'm the only person who's ever watched that film, but it's the one where the computer comes to life after he spills champagne on it.
Okay, well, is that the one that's got the Human League?
The Phil Oakey and Giorgio Moroder, yeah.
Sorry.
And it stars Virginia Madsen.
Okay. I'll have to look that up.
Anyway, that's a little tangent.
Yes, yes. Well, Nathan, is there anything else that you remember about this film you wanted to share?
I just want to say that I do really, really like the title, and that title was kind of reused in a tagline for the movie Blood Sisters.
That's true.
Their hazing was A Night to Dismember.
Exactly.
That's the Roberta Findlay movie, is it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, because I think Doris wanted to, in the commentary, she said she wanted, I don't know if she said it's a sequel, but she wanted to make another film called Acts of Violence. As in Acts, AX, and also ACTS. So
she's got some good titles, doesn't she?
Yeah, she does.
She does.
I liked her one, their sexploitation title, Nude on the Moon.
Yes.
Oh, I wish I was nude on the moon right now.
Yeah, with your tits out.
Yeah.
You'd be dead.
That's true. You wouldn't be able to breathe.
I see. I never thought about that. Yeah.
Her penultimate film before she died was Dildo Heaven.
Oh, I wish I was in Dildo Heaven right now.
Well, we can't see you, Eric. Maybe you are.
And the one film on her list that I had heard of was Let Me Die a Woman, which I think was notorious over in the UK, wasn't it?
Mm. Yeah,
it was kind of close to being a video nasty, I think.
Yeah. No, that's right. I mean, I did see. Have you seen any of the Chesty Morgan films?
No.
Is Chesty Morgan the woman that's the movie that Scotty's watching and Serial Mom?
Yes, that's right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because I think John Waters, unsurprisingly, probably was a big fan of Doris Wishman. And I've seen pictures of them together, and she talks about that's right. He was that was in Serial Mom, wasn't it? I've forgotten that. But yeah, the Chesty Morgan films are quite funny because Chesty Morgan is actually quite unattractive looking, apart from she wears massive platform or these huge kind of 70s kind of platforms, and she just has enormous breasts.
Yes, I'm aware of her ample bosoms.
I think she was Polish as well.
She is Polish, yeah.
Yeah. So, but
and on another tangent with Chesty Morgan, you said she's unattractive, and yes, she is. So why in Serial Mom? Why would Scotty want to masturbate to that?
Scotty was a big pervert. I mean, everything was like a turn on for him.
She had massive boobs. I think he probably didn't see past that.
Yeah.
A lot of boys can't. Yeah.
But her boobs look like they were hanging down like really, really low. I mean, in one scene in the Serial Mom movie, he's watching Double Agent or something. Like she lifts one up. I mean,
and he's like, oh.
Oh boy. Well, Doris Wishman, we will probably never see her like again. I wouldn't have thought. She is as one of a kind, and A Night to Dismember is one of a kind. And so, I think I would, if you've got tolerance for bad movies, I think you should watch Night to Dismember, but especially if you can get hold of the Elite DVD with the commentary, because the commentary really makes it, and it is absolutely hilarious. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed us chatting about that. what we'll do is we're going to go on to some feedback. Before we do that, we'll give you contact details.
Our voicemail lines are open at 858-233-9281. You can reach us via email at the.hysteria.continues@gmail.com. We are on Twitter. That's twitter.com/THC_podcast. Facebook fans can find us at facebook.com/The Hysteria Continues, The Body Count Continues, or Hysteria-Lives. You can check out Justin's website at hysteria.co.uk. You can check out my website at the-bodycount-continues.com. Nathan has his own side project at blogtalkradio.com/the-axe-to-grind-show. That is AXE, not AX. And finally, if you would like to purchase some merchandise, you can look us up on cafepress.com/The Hysteria Continues, and we really appreciate you listening. Thanks, everyone.
I just noticed, Joseph, don't you give my web address wrong in that?
Yes, he does.
Did I?
Joseph,
Yes.
you're going to have to do it again.
Yeah.
What is it? I said hysteria-lives.co.uk, didn't I?
You said hysteria.co.uk.
Did I really?
Joseph.
Yes. Oh.
You're going to have to do it again now.
Well,
Yeah.
I'll re-record it just for that, I guess.
Okay. But
Can I just say one thing about Doris Wishman before we can move on to feedback? That according to the IMDb, she's the cousin of Max Rosenberg, who is one of the men behind Amicus.
Okay.
Don't know how true that is, but IMDb says it.
She also said she seemed to have a sense of humor about her films. I mean, she said before she died that she'd still be making these films in hell.
Yes.
Well, I hope she is. Yes, God bless her. So, well, thank you, Doris, and thank you for listening. We've got quite a lot of feedback actually to get through this week, haven't we? I don't think we've got any voicemails, have we?
No voicemails.
No. But Nathan, I think you have a little bit of feedback, don't you? Do you want to kick off?
Oh, I do, but I got to find it first. So,
let's go.
Give me just a second.
So unprofessional.
Send it to me.
Sorry,
if somebody else wants to go first.
Okay, Erik.
Okay, yes. I have mine ready here. Okay, this is from Justin Kosh, and he says, I run a humble little blog called Italian Lemonade, available at italianlemonade.blogspot.com. It's about my love of all things giallo. I'm also working on my second giallo screenplay, the progress of which is being documented on the blog. I'm fortunate to have a professor who appreciates the giallo and encourages me to keep that direction. I've recently rediscovered all of the goodness that is the Hysteria Continues on my iPod. It makes for incredibly entertaining listening whilst driving to class, not only because of everybody's love of all things horror, but because of the constant double entendres. I feel right at home. I want to thank you for finally putting a name to a movie that's been on my brain for the last 20 years or so. I remembered a movie I watched on a Saturday morning about a bunch of girls on an island being stalked by a killer. When you mentioned the dog getting sent outside only to die, and the girl yelling that he was a nice doggy, I finally got the answer: 5 Desperate Women. So thank you for finally ending that mystery for me. I do have a couple of questions. First of all, who is this Toya that you keep mentioning? I know
Exactly.
She's being compared to Susie Sue, who I love and adore, but I don't know anything about her, so please enlighten me so I can familiarize myself. Also, can I make a suggestion for a top 3 list? I've been going through the past podcasts, but haven't come across this one, but a list of top 3 most frustrating horror films would be interesting, pretty much consisting of movies that have some great moments, but also have such horrible moments that it frustrates you every time you watch it. My top 3 would be Hellraiser 2, which has both some of the best moments and some of the worst moments of the entire franchise. A Nightmare on Elm Street 3, which starts off as one of the best Nightmare films, but once we get to the group dream sequences and the Wizard Master, I can't take anymore. And probably The Card Player, which had great potential and has some great moments, but every time there's an actual card game, the film just comes to a grinding halt. Well, that's all I have for now. Keep up the good work and keep your cat away from the toilet. And that's from Justin Kosh in Virginia.
Well, thank you, Justin.
Okay, well, just to fill you in on Toya. Toya is a pop goddess from the late 70s and 80s, and she's still going today, actually, that I love. She was, I suppose she peaked in 1981 with 3 top 10 singles. The only reason we compare her to Susie, I suppose, is because they both have big spiky hair, Toya's being orange and Susie's being black. And also that because I like Toya more than Susie and Justin likes Susie more than Toya, we just like to have a kind of mini battle over who's the best.
I like to instigate it.
Which really neither is the best.
Well, I think we do know who's the
Toya.
best. I mean,
Because Toya is an actress as well. She was in Jubilee, and she's in an episode of Tales of the Unexpected. I don't know if you get that over in the States. And she was in an episode of Celebrity Cash in the Attic.
Was she? Wow.
Yeah. And she was in Celebrity Bargain Hunt as well.
Well, I know she was. I did see her on TV relatively recently giving a talk to the Women's Institute.
Sorry? She was what?
Giving a talk to the Women's Institute. Which I think.
No, she was. That wasn't Toya.
When she was on Celebrity Bargain Hunt, was she out looking for Susie CDs?
Ooh. Yeah.
I'm sure she'd probably find more of
next
her
week.
own
Next
CDs.
week, I'll defend Susie and then bash Toya.
Yeah.
I want to bash.
See, I like them both, so my job is the instigator.
I don't like either one of them, so I just usually stay out of it. I haven't heard one song from either one of them yet that I think is any good. Sorry.
Well, really? I don't think, in fairness, I don't think Toya made much of an impact outside of Europe, so that's probably why our listeners in the States probably have no idea who she is.
It's a mystery that she didn't.
Yeah, exactly. A mystery.
I got a Toya T-shirt actually as a gift before I went away on my holidays. It says "It's a mystery" on it. It was very good.
As for merchandise, official merchandise,
it is.
They still do that.
Yes.
Okay.
She has a very good website, toyawilcox.com. As for his top 3 suggestions of most frustrating horror films, that sounds good. I would agree with him on Hellraiser 2 because I think it has some fantastic moments in it, and then it has some really shoddy, horrible moments in it as well.
No, I think it's a good. It might be a bit close to the one we've done this week, but I think we could probably. come up with some different ideas, couldn't we, for that? Yeah. So I think
I'm thinking we are beginning to sort of overlap with our top 3s. There's only so many we can come up with.
Exactly, we are kind of we're running the risk, but
now if you have top 3 ideas that we haven't done, send them in.
Yeah, absolutely.
Top 3 Toya songs. It's a Mystery, I Want to Be Free, and Rebel Run. There we go.
What about Like a Prayer? That was a pretty good one.
That's Madonna.
Oh, goodness me.
Yeah.
And I do like her song True Colors.
No.
Stirring the pot.
Yeah.
They have the same
I
thing.
like her song. I like the song she did, "The Captain of Her Heart." That's taking us back to way in the beginning of
that is. I remember vaguely something about that song before. Okay, anyone else? I've got another one, but will I pass it over to Nathan now?
Nathan,
okay, I found mine. Okay. Hi, Justin, Eric, Joseph, and Nathan. Hi, Tommy. I love your podcast and have been listening since the Fatal Game show and have caught up on all of your catalog since. I'd love for you guys to do a comprehensive show on Unhinged from 1982. It's one of my favorite slasher films of all time, and there's so very little information on it out there. I know its director, Don Gronquist, is on Facebook, and I know from the interview on the DVD, he thinks fondly of the movie, so you could possibly get an audio interview with him. I'd love to hear how he initially came up with the idea, how the shooting went, his relationship with the actors, and the aftermath of the film post its video nasties ban. It would be really awesome if you could get other people involved with the film to do an interview. I know Unhinged is a secret pleasure of slasher fans, and I think your fans would love to hear a show on it. All the best to you guys, and I look forward to future episodes, possibly also a future show on Rocktober Blood. Cheers, loyal fan from Melbourne, Australia, Tommy. Thank you, Tommy, and I love Rocktober Blood, and I adore Unhinged. The problem is I have really tried to... I've emailed Don Gronquist twice asking for an interview and haven't gotten a response, and I can't find anybody else associated with the movie. If you can, send me their Facebook information or something, and I'll try them, because I would love to do a show on it, but I'm kind of holding out, hoping that Don will write me back.
Well, thank you, Tommy. And I'm sure we all wait with bated breath for an Unhinged episode, don't we?
You are going to love it.
I think all of our episodes are unhinged.
Yes.
I have yet to see Unhinged. I mean, the Baby Jesus did reward me with a copy of it a while back, but I haven't got around to watching it yet. Is it as bad?
No, it's really good.
I like it.
I like it too. I promise you, Justin, you're going to like it more this time.
Okay. Well,
it's another video nasty, is it not, Justin?
It is. Yeah. There's kind of some brief flashes of gore. It's a bit like I kind of liken it to an Andy Milligan film. There's lots of sitting around talking over dinner tables, a little bit, and then some like sickle murders. It's kind of that. It's like one long dinner party, and then a couple of sickle murders at the end is what I remember. But I say I might like it a bit more. I don't know. So
what about Rocktober Blood? That could be a good one to do.
Rainbow Eyes
is a lot of fun.
That's a movie I don't like, but I will watch it again. Maybe my opinion will change.
Right. Well, thank you very much, Tommy, and thank you, Nathan. Shall I go next, or Joseph? Do you want to? Have you got one you want to go with?
Go ahead. You go first. Okay.
Well, I've got this is from Brett Roberts, and he says, "Hello, you lousy bastards." And I won't do. He writes it in the way that Linda Day George says it, so I'll play that rather than say it.
Bastard! Bastard! Bastard!
Yes.
Always makes me smile.
Absolutely. He says, I hope all is well. I began listening to your podcast just to hear your reviews of movies I've seen, but I enjoy your interaction so much that I've gone back to episode 1 and began to listen to all of them, even movies I haven't seen. Even when I haven't seen them, I find the talks funny and interesting. I had a few questions for you. Okay, and this is the questions he's got, is number 1, who is a better Scream Queen, Jamie Lee Curtis or Dana Kimmel? Who wants to take that?
Jamie Lee Kimmel.
How do you measure that, though? I mean, do you measure it like the whole package or just who is better at screaming?
Well, I kind of said Jamie Lee has to be the better Scream Queen. But,
yes.
I've never measured the whole package.
Have you not?
No? I'm not that vain.
Oh, please.
Well,
no, you have.
I vote for... overall, I vote for Jamie Lee. So
I'm going to have to go with Jamie Lee, too.
Yeah, me too. Sorry, Dana.
What about you, Eric?
Jamie Lee, definitely.
Well, there you go. So that's answer your first one, Brett. Number 2 is, do you think you would be up for reviewing the Prom Night series? This has to be one of the strangest series ever made, as only 2 of the films actually have anything to do with each other, while parts 1 and 4 are off in their own separate universe. I will admit the first one is a favourite of mine, and the second one has some of the best nudity in a movie ever. I think Prom Night will be coming up pretty soon. It's just that I haven't seen Prom Night 2 for a long time, although Patrick over at Scream Queens did an episode on Prom Night 2, Hello Mary Lou, and it sounded like a lot of fun. And I did see it. I think I've got the video, but I probably haven't seen it since 1988 or something, when it came out on video. But I do remember being disappointed that it wasn't a slasher movie. I thought a Prom Night sequel would be a carry-on, not carry-on slasher movie, but like would carry on in that vein. But bizarrely, it's the series is sandwiched. You've got like slasher movies at the beginning and the end, haven't you? Prom Night 4 or Deliver Us From Evil is essentially a slasher movie. But definitely we will cover the first one pretty soon, I imagine. But what do you guys reckon?
Yeah, actually, I had written to the actor who plays Slick a while back, and he had agreed to an interview, but like a lot of these interviews, they just don't pan out. You never hear from them again, even though they say, yeah, I will do an interview, but maybe we'll get him after all. I would like to do Prom Night. I think it's a fairly fun film.
Prom Night would be a great one to do, definitely.
I haven't seen Prom Night 4. I've seen the first 3.
Have you not seen
I don't think I've seen 4. No, is it any good?
It's not bad, actually, is it? It's got a really creepy villain, hasn't it?
It does have a creepy villain. You're right.
Does it tie into it doesn't tie into the first one at all? No.
No.
It's its own film.
Yeah.
Although I believe there is one actor that's in all 4 films.
Yes, they were saying something about that on the Scream Queens podcast, weren't they?
Yeah. So, well, that's our answer on that, Brett. Now, the next one you say, in an earlier show, Justin said something about going to the gay bars. I was wondering if any of the hosts of the homosexual persuasion. I, myself, am a lifetime homosexual and a connoisseur of many fine penises, both big and small, cut and uncut. It would be nice to know if any of you guys count yourself as members of this club.
Let me just interject here. I mean, it should have been obvious by now. I think we pretty much made it clear who is and who isn't.
Joseph, you big shirt lifter.
Yes. I know. Yeah.
There's only one breeder among us.
Stop it.
Yes, and so Joseph's off to Chickaphil later, unlike the rest of us.
Chickaphil?
Yeah.
Is it Chickaphil?
I'd never even heard of it until this week.
Is that what it's called? Chickaphil?
Chick-fil-A.
Oh, Chick-fil-A. Okay.
Oh, right, yeah. Whatever.
That's where Joseph's supporting, right, Joseph?
That's it.
That's it.
I am totally anti-gay.
obviously being spit roasted by the rest of us every week. So. So anyway, yes. So to answer your question, there, some of us are connoisseurs of many fine penises, both big and small. So, and thank you for answering, Brett.
I'm a connoisseur of my own.
I'm sure you are. Number 4, were you aware of the upcoming very special Blu-ray release of Halloween 3 with a commentary by the legendary Tom Atkins? I myself can't wait to pick this up. Yes, I am aware of that, and I'm looking forward to that. And Erik, you very kindly sent me a link to sort of a Blu-ray all-region player, which I might have to invest in at some point. Have you got it through yet?
Not yet. No, I only ordered it on Friday.
Right,
yeah, so it's £179, and then it was £29 to ship to Ireland. So it sounds like a lot, but hopefully it'll be well worth it, because the Halloween 2 and Halloween 3 Blu-rays are going to be region locked. So this is what has prompted me to get it.
Terror Train's it's going to be region locked, isn't it?
Yeah.
So because
they're coming out on DVD, which I could have done, but I want them on Blu-ray because I'm just like Veruca Salt, really.
Yes.
I want.
No, fair enough.
You want it now?
Yeah.
You don't care how?
No. Cream buns and donuts and fruitcakes with no nuts.
Can't fight this either.
Oh, I know that song.
Yeah,
Veruca Salt, yeah. Of course. Yeah.
Yes.
Can't fight this either.
Quite like that song, yeah.
Anyway, back on task.
Yes.
On task. One last suggestion, number 5, the last question is, you guys should review the little seen but ultra creepy 1981 slasher Eyes of a Stranger. This stars Lauren Toos from The Love Boat and Jennifer Jason Leigh in her very first movie, and has excellent special effects by Tom Savini. I think you guys would enjoy it. Now, I'm not a big fan of that movie. I think it's kind of cheesy, but it's a film I need to rewatch. But I remember watching it. I was not a big fan of it. But what about you guys?
We watched it on movie night not too long ago. I loved it. I think it's fantastic.
I
do.
I haven't seen it for a while, but I do remember liking it, I have to say. Sorry, Justin.
Okay, well, maybe that'd be another one to pick. It'd be an interesting pick. But Brett, well, thank you very, very much for writing in. And yes, if you see any particularly good penises, do let us know. And,
big or small?
Big or small, exactly. So, on from those bombshells, it's like I don't know, it's like a movie of the week or something, or sort of I don't know, the Jeremy Kyle show, isn't it, at the moment? Which you obviously don't get in the States. What would Jeremy Kyle show? It would be like a Jerry Springer show, isn't it?
Yeah.
But anyway, I'm wittering now. So, who hasn't read something? Joseph?
Actually, I got 2, but this is again from Brett Roberts, who writes in again. He says, "Hello, gentlemen. Well, I was going to write this after listening to your Don't Go in the Woods episode, which I mistakenly thought would go up on the 25th of July. Turns out it's not till the 29th. And that's today, so the day we're recording, so hope you've listened to that by now." But he says, "So I have many more days to wait. Let's just pretend I have listened to it and it was delightful, and I especially love Joseph's comment about an hour into it. It made me laugh." I don't remember what my comment was an hour into it, but hopefully it will make you laugh. But anyways, he says, "Okay, guys, I'm still working through your old shows. I'm on episode 13 now. I have some feedback, suggestions, and questions for you. Question number 1. A suggestion for a good top 3 segment, Best Boobs. Personally, my vote for number 1 would have to go to the unforgettable Pamela Susan Shoop in 1981's Halloween 2. That rack is so fantastic it should be modeled and put on display in a museum of natural history." So I guess he wants to know what our best boobs are. I don't know. I'm not much of a boob man. I'm more of a leg and ass person, but I'd say Debbie Sue Voorhees, maybe.
Pamela Susan Shoops are fantastic, though.
Yeah.
Linda Blair's cleavage in Hell.
Yes.
Yeah.
That was a character in and of itself.
Or what's the actress's name in Halloween 4? She's got huge rack as well. Kathleen Kinmont, is it?
Yes.
Yeah.
I don't know if does she get them out in Halloween 4? I think she does.
I think she does, doesn't she?
Yeah.
And there's lots of boobies in Slumber Party Massacre, isn't there?
Oh yeah,
Fatal Games.
All right, his number 2 is another suggestion, if you haven't done it already. Top 3 best bitches. Who can forget Melissa from Friday the 13th Part 7, or Wendy from Prom Night? And I think that's a pretty good idea. I mean, it'd be kind of hard to find 12 bitches. Do you think it might be?
Yeah, possibly.
Yeah,
Wendy from Prom Night is my favorite, I have to say.
Yeah, I love
Melissa from Friday the 13th Part 7 is my favorite.
I like I can't remember what the character is, but the one in Cheerleader Camp, she's quite funny as well.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh,
She's
yeah.
very bitchy.
I kind of like the
one in Sleepaway
I
Camp.
think her name's Jennifer Esposito, and I Still Know What You Did Last Summer. She's kind of the bitchy barmaid. I like her.
I like the bitchy one in Killer Party.
Yeah.
Yes.
I like the girl with the side ponytail in Sleepaway Camp, the first one.
I think we could come up with this. Sounds like we already have.
Yeah, maybe.
I'll tell
We
you my
should do this
favourite.
and have sound clips of their good bitchiest moments.
I'll tell you my favourite bitchy one is the girl in the wheelchair in Psycho Beach Party.
Oh my God!
She's so bitchy.
Just as she wheels up to the waitress and she goes, "Pat, sorry you're going bald, but finding clumps of hair in the chicken a la king frankly grosses me out."
See, I think that's brilliant. I think it's brilliant that they actually had her in a wheelchair because you expect her to be kind of, friendly, and she's not.
When she goes
But
up
anyway.
to it goes up to the main character, doesn't she, and says, "Oh, you enjoy your own company, don't you?" And just kind of, she's great. But anyway, carry on.
Oh, I'm sorry. I had to say this before Joseph keeps reading because you brought that up, Justin. I like when she says, "I've got friends coming over for dinner," and then she looks at Berdine and she's like, "Berdine, you're not invited."
Yes. Okay, well, that's probably answered that for Brett. But anything else?
Yeah, 3 of 6, he says, since I believe I have found a way to mention penises in my previous feedback to you, I think I will try to keep it as a recurring theme. And on that note, do you think Jason Voorhees is circumcised? Going even further, do you think Jason even has genitals at this point, after spending so many years as a rotting, walking corpse?
I don't know.
I would say no. I'd say by now they've probably rotted off. In the first 4 films, I'd say maybe he had something.
I'd say his underpants have probably sort of melted with his flesh, probably.
Kind of like the Incredible Hulk, maybe.
Is Jason a virgin?
Probably.
Well, if part 3 is in the indication, he's a rapist, so maybe not.
I've never liked that. Stop buzzing.
Yeah. This is one of these imponderable questions.
Speaking of penises.
Yes.
Staying somewhat in number 4, staying somewhat in the penis family again. When using a public restroom, do you prefer to use the urinal or the stall, and why?
The
Depends if
stall.
I'm doing a number 1 or number 2.
Number 1.
Well, you're going to do number 2 in a urinal?
Well, exactly. It's not very likely, is it? I used to work at. I probably told this story before, but when I used to work at C&A, it was like a clothing shop when I was at sixth form at college on Saturdays, and they kept on finding poo in the ladies' changing rooms.
Ew.
And somebody would, and basically somebody heard like a fart basically, and looked under the store and saw this woman squatting, doing curling one off.
Ew.
In the changing rooms.
Disgusting.
And then she went and told the woman at the front desk that I'd just seen this woman next door to me shitting in the next door, and this other woman came out and said, "She said, how dare you? That's how I didn't do that. It's disgusting." She's saying, "Look, there's a turd there." That's your turd. And she said, "It's not my turd," and she was saying, they were going to how are they going to test it to find out if it's a turd or not? But anyway, that's just a.
Well, why would you go into a dressing room if there's a turd there?
Well, exactly. Why would you go in there? You might step around it. But yeah, so there you go. But yes, the answer to that would be dependent on what I was doing, I imagine.
I'm a stall man, I have to say. I don't like
Mine
people.
depends on. I'm sorry, Eric.
I don't like people checking out my winkle unless I invite them to.
Yeah.
I'm just if I go in and there's a line of urinals empty, then I don't care to use one. But if there's several people there, I feel weird standing right next to somebody. I don't know. It weirds me out.
Same. Yeah.
Same with me.
I did go to a drag bar once in Gran Canaria, and it had one urinal, and that was all it had in the bar. And my friend was very ill and was sick in the urinal, and there was a queue of people waiting to use the urinal while he was being sick in it. Anyway, it's a glamorous life that I lead.
Yeah.
So,
well, there's a very
shitty life. It sounds like
there's a Bears bar in central London called King's Arms, and its toilet is quite narrow, and the clientele would be quite not narrow. so it can be quite tricky. Yeah. Yeah.
Whose idea was to put a narrow toilet in a bear bar?
I've no idea, but they obviously didn't do their research.
Exactly. Well, see what you brought out of us, Brett.
Yeah.
What else? Where are we up to?
He's got 2 more questions. He says, number 5, who is your most favorite slasher star that you've met? And speaking for myself, it would be a tie between Amy Steele and Lauren Marie Taylor.
Well, I've only met in the flesh one, I think, and that's Adrienne King. But I've spoken to a few on Skype and that, and my favourite would probably be Russell Todd from Friday the 13th Part 2. I thought he was really nice.
I'm trying to think.
See, I have so many favorites because I love everybody that I've interviewed so far. And, of course, you guys know I love Lori Lathine because, she's awesome. And then Amy Steele, I mean, obviously she's incredible. I mean, after what she did for me, I mean, of course, she's going to be my number one.
I don't think I haven't met any in the flesh, I don't think. I'm trying to think. I can't think of any ones that I have because obviously being in the UK and we don't have conventions, so actually it's quite limited to actually be. But all the people I've spoken to on Skype and stuff have always been very gracious and very enthusiastic. So I'm trying to think of someone that stood out as I mean, yeah, I can't. I'm trying to. Nobody jumps out at me apart from I mean, yeah, I'm just trying to think, actually. I can't, my mind is blank for some reason. I think it's the tequila repeating, so I might come back on that one. So,
all right.
Went to number one. Is that it? Or is that...
And then you got one more. He says, actually, this question is for Nathan specifically.
Oh, dear.
I have attached 2 pictures of myself, and I'll have to send these 2 pictures to you, obviously. I understand that you are engaged/married to a lovely man. But if you were not, is this the face of somebody you would wish to date? And I guess I'll need to send you these pictures so you can make that
judgment. Yeah, how can I answer that question, Joseph?
Well, I just now got to the email, so I didn't really know that it had 2 attachments.
Okay, well, I will answer that question for you after I see the pictures when Joseph sends them to me.
Oh, gosh,
but anyways, he says, that's all for now. I'm looking forward to any coming shows. Oops, Freudian slip on the spelling, so you obviously know how he spelled coming. And that's from Brett Roberts.
I think Brett is a very saucy fellow, isn't he?
He is very saucy.
Yes.
I'm sure that won't be the last we hear of him. It's going to turn into... It's going to be like you on Broadway, like Lauren Bacall in The Fan and Michael Biehn stalking you. I think you've got a new fan there, Nathan.
Yep.
So.
I like having fans. I told Wes the other night that I'm a celebrity now, that we're all horror celebrities, and he laughed at me.
I wonder why.
You don't think we're celebrities?
No.
I think we're internet stars.
We're going to sign autographs. People are going to be asking for our autographs soon. I need to do some headshots.
Somebody's getting carried away, I think.
Yeah, I think Brett wants a different type of headshot.
Matron, please.
I'm not that good.
Right. Anyway, well, let's move swiftly on. Thank you very much, Brett. I'm sure that isn't going to be the last we hear of you, so do write in again. Who wants to go next?
Okay, I have another one here.
Okay,
This is from our friend of the podcast, Brian Sammons from Michigan. He says, hey guys, in regards to your Friday the 13th Part 2 show, I wanted to say great job as always. Your Friday the 13th shows have become my favourites of yours, and I can't wait for future installments. That said, I do have 2 points I'd like to share. First, in your worst Friday the 13th moments list, I can't believe that none of you mentioned the Mount Everest of stupid moments for all the films. I'm talking about the end of Friday Part 8. Yeah, you know where I'm going with this. So the sewers of New York fill with toxic waste every night at midnight. Okay, if that wasn't stupid enough, it appears that radioactive goo also has magical properties because it not only de-ages Jason back to a child, but cures all his deformities also. Yep, worst ending to any Friday the 13th movie ever. Even more horrible than the giant Muppet hands pulling Jason underground at the end of Jason Goes to Hell. Okay, yeah, we missed that one. I was thinking of possibly pushing that one in, but I think by that stage in Part 8, I was kind of worn out with stupid moments. Well, I don't know what you guys think of the ending of Part 8.
Well,
it's pretty terrible.
Pretty daft.
Just like the movie, it's terrible.
I thought it was more of a symbolic ending than I didn't take the sort of Jason regressing back to a child and being cured of his deformities literally. I thought it was kind of maybe some kind of metaphorical image or something. Am I
Could be.
Am I reading
No,
too
you
much
probably-
into it?
I think they may have wanted to go down that.
I don't
route,
think they
but
were
it
that
wasn't.
smart, though.
No, it was. It was very stupid. Yeah,
Maybe you should write a Friday the 13th film.
maybe I should.
Yeah.
Okay, anyway, his second point, it's actually a question for all of you. In the spirit of Nathan's interesting theory of Alice still being alive, don't get me started on that. I wanted to know if you had any thoughts on the Catch-22 paradox behind Friday the 13th Part 2. That being, when we last saw Jason, he was a rotted-looking little boy in the lake. In Part 2, just 1 year later, I think it's actually 5 years later, isn't it, in Part 2, he's a full-grown man. So what happened? If the end of Part 1 was just a dream, why was Mama Voorhees so adamant that counselors killed her only son? Was she mistaken? Was she lying? If you watch the first movie, she seems pretty psychotically sincere, even talking to herself in his voice. Did Jason hide in the woods after his almost drowning and raise himself? Well then, why didn't he go back to his mommy during all her vengeance trips out to the camp? He obviously saw her get her head cut off and retrieved it. Was that the only time he saw his mother after his near drowning? Talk about a hell of a coincidence and just plain old bad timing, if that's supposed to be the answer. This logic loophole has caused Tom Savini to call all of the Friday the 13th sequels stupid, as they don't make any sense. So what are your thoughts on this? Any theories? In closing, once again, you guys did a great job, as you always do. So please keep the slasher goodness coming for many years to come. All the best, Brian Sammons. Well, thank you, Brian. Yes, the Friday the 13th Part 2 paradox. It
is a paradox. It's not a catch-22, though. That's a completely different term. Sorry.
You have to. Well, yeah. You have to take a leap of faith, I think, with Part 2. I always just view it as a supernatural incident. I think Jason died and was resurrected by his grief of some kind. I mean, I try not to analyze it too deeply because it doesn't make any sense. I don't know what you guys think.
I think the movies were built on people getting killed in the woods, and that's what they sold. They didn't go in for story, so some liberties with the story were taken in different entries.
Yeah, I mean, it is a major liberty they've taken. What do you think, Justin? Do you think Jason resurrected, or was he always alive, or?
It's difficult to know, isn't it? Because I think Betsy Palmer, when I saw her interviewed at one of the conventions, and she was talking about being invited back for Part 2, and she's like, "What do you mean Jason's alive?" She was incredulous at that, and I think you could come up with theories, but it's there not a huge amount of thought went into it. I think like if there was, my theory would be that he didn't drown and he crawled into the woods and he became a wild man. And maybe he was on holiday when his mum came to kill all the counsellors. Maybe he was in town catching a film or something. And then he came back and saw his mother's head being chopped off, and then that drove him from being a mild-mannered, sort of wild man to turning into a psychotic revenge machine.
Well, that's just stupid.
Well, it's no more stupid than any other theory, is it? Like Alice still being alive.
I don't think it works in your favor just to think of theories of why Jason becomes the killer in Part 2. I mean,
yeah. I mean, the thing is, they just needed a killer, didn't they?
They did,
they couldn't have Mrs. Voorhees' head rolling around with a machete between her teeth. That would have been.
So if you look at it that way, anything could be explained in the Friday the 13th movies.
Yes.
But I think the reason why he looks more grown up in Part 2 is because I think they do state it's 5 years later, isn't it? Rather than 1 year.
But it's just in the same way, isn't it? If you look at something like the James Bond movies, and it's never explained why he is still the same age and being played by different actors. It's just taken for granted that it's just something that, you know.
He would still be older, though. I mean, even then, because he didn't drown in 1980. He drowned, like, back in the 60s. So, he would be, like, how old would he be in Part 2?
True, yeah.
Well, that's a very good point, actually, because when he jumps out of the lake, because the thing is, Alice probably dreamt that, didn't she? So,
yeah.
She's adept at dreaming, I'm telling you.
Sorry?
She's adept at dreaming. She dreams a lot.
Yeah, she dreamed
about being killed, is what he's trying to say.
She did.
Well, okay. Well, that's some of our theories on that. But thank you very much, Brian.
Yeah, so the Jason in 1980, basically, when Mrs. Voorhees was on a rampage, was 30-something at that stage, is what we're saying, yeah.
Yeah. He was just chilling out, he was probably upset. Here's my theory. He was upset with his mother because he felt that she was also slightly to blame because she was cooking when he was drowning.
She was making love to Steve Christie while that young boy drowned.
And so were the counselors.
That's Joseph's theory, anyway.
With those teeth, she's probably flossing or something.
Have you seen the way he's like? He's like, "Oh hi, what are you doing out in this mess?"
Yeah. I think yes.
So Nathan can have his ridiculous theory. I can have mine.
My theory's not ridiculous.
Yeah.
You Alice hater. Hater's gonna hate.
Joseph, do you
I
often
said I hate Alice. I love Alice.
I want her to be dead.
And I love Adrian King. Haven't met her.
Do you often think of Steve Christie and Pamela Voorhees going at it?
Sometimes. See, the big question I would ask myself would be, everyone has all these Friday the 13th questions, but the big question I have is, why on earth would anyone want to kill poor Billy in Part 5?
Because he was obnoxious. He used drugs, and that is a no-no. He had snow flurries up his nose.
I'm sure you used drugs once or twice in your life.
I never had snow flurries up my nose.
Why not?
That's what he gets.
Yeah.
Plus, he was really loud, disturbing the peace.
Yeah.
He was very loud.
He wanted to party. I mean, he spent all day cleaning out bedpans, for God's sake. Don't you think he deserved to cut loose a little bit?
He did, and then he deserved to die for it.
We're going to disagree on this one forever.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I think. Well, let's. Have we got any more? I've got.
I got one more.
I've got one here as well.
You want to go ahead and go first, though?
Okay. I've only got a short one, as it were. Says greetings. It's not true, Brett. Greetings and salutations, gentlemen. Long-time listener and fairly new contributor to the forums. I'm also the schmuck who came up with the top 3 worst songs list. I'm still waiting for your choices on the podcast. And I think that would be a good one to do, actually. I think it would be quite a fun one to do. Love the show and hope you guys keep on going on with the show. Please try and do Sleepaway Camp and Theatre of Blood, the proto-slasher dark comedy soon. All hail the cat flushing the toilet, Kenneth Williams, Matron, Chunky Kit Kat, and to a lesser degree, Susie, and especially Toya. No, he actually doesn't say that, but he says to a lesser degree, Toya and Susie. Brad, a.k.a. BHY1117.
Him. Huh?
Brad. Yes.
Yeah, he posts on the forums.
He does.
Good guy.
And Sleepaway Camp, I think, will be a very fun one to do. And Theatre of Blood would be a good one to do as well at some point. Well, there's so many, isn't there? There's so many. And obviously, Nathan is choosing the ones that Nathan chooses, which is kind of a certain type. And I think I've joined him in his that type this week.
I was so impressed with you.
Well,
now it's Eric and I are the only ones who haven't chosen anything terrible.
Well, it's arguable, isn't it?
But, we won't go there.
Yeah.
But should we just talk? Well, actually, we will reveal what the next choice is going to be at the end of the show. But have we got another little bit of feedback?
Yeah, we got one more from Alex Dean. He writes in and says, "Hi guys, Friday the 13th Part 2, your best episode to date. Justin, what did you think of the special shrink effects, i.e. the really bad back projection and the uncanny?" I don't know what he's talking about there. Do you?
Oh, what the uncanny, the film.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't even remember that. But I think it's now jogging a memory because I was probably drinking red wine at the time. But yes, it was quite a cheap film. That was yes, it's not something that stayed with me very much actually, even though I do love cats.
Okay, he also says, "It's great hearing about your movie nights. You lot sharing these films with family and friends, willing and unwilling. How about posting pics of the rooms where the movie experience happens? Point of view shots of your TV screens would be cool. And how about a top 3 best, worst reactions from people you've showed favorite movies to? Graduation Day was my pick. One DVD night, and the room with one a cord turned and chatted amongst themselves. Some folks have no taste." Okay. And then he says, "About the snake in Friday the 13th, Sean S. Cunningham said, the only disturbing moment on the set was when we killed the snake for real. Everything else was make-believe except for the snake, which was chopped with a machete. It's an important moment in the film. It's a tone setting, but it was very upsetting to everyone, including myself, that we actually killed that snake. The reality of it was disturbing," end quote. And then Alex writes in and says, "Bullshit. There's no excuse to distress or hurt, let alone kill any animal for a film. If it was that disturbing, bozo, why do it? Shame on him." Anywho, my 3 worst Friday the 13th moments would be Number 3, the end of part 8. Huh? What? Sewage makes us young? Who knew? Going back to that again. Number 2 would be Jason hanging the sleeping bag over the fire in the remake. It's a Jason movie, not a torture porn. And then number 1 would be not having Betsy Palmer play mom in Freddy vs. Jason. Would any of you guys agree with any of those?
Well, yeah. Betsy Palmer is Jason's mother.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
Yeah, I mean, I think Betsy Palmer was treated very, very badly by considering how much money those films made, and they, in part 2 they refused to pay her for her plane ticket, didn't they, for her to do anything apart from what she did, and I think that's really rubbish, because considering she made the first film for peanuts, didn't she, and it made sort of like 40 million at the box office, so yeah. I think it's I think she'll always be Mrs. Voorhees.
Plus, that woman in Freddy vs. Jason, she didn't quite have the choppers for it.
No, exactly. It's the teeth, isn't it? The teeth like tombstones, which is which is key.
Yeah, Betsy Palmer is the female Gary Busey.
Yes, she is. Bless her.
He also says, Joseph, I loved your summary of part 2. You should put pen to paper, get a publishing deal, and give Justin's amazing slasher book a run for its money. I don't know. But then he also says, anyhow, thanks again for many happy listening hours. Happy camper Alex. P.S. Erik, I don't care what the computer said. I'd do my best to bring you back to life.
Woohoo! That's what I was making reference to the computer.
That's a dead fuck reference.
Yeah, I was saying
this guy's probably a bear. This guy's probably a bear.
Oh,
what's his email address?
It's like we should be playing.
That's
some
Alex
music,
Dean. Send in nude photos, Alex. Erik wants to see nude photos.
Yeah.
Do you, Erik?
Yeah, I want everyone to send me nude photos.
Everyone.
You didn't respond to mine.
Yeah, he did. He threw them away.
I think we should be careful what we wish for, because BTK.
You're not fair enough.
I'm actually not bare enough, I'm afraid.
Did you see the erotic photos on The Body Count Continues of my book?
Yes.
Oh my God.
BTK made love to your book.
He did, and that was a very special moment for me, because Eli on the forums licked the book, and then BTK went one further by rubbing his genitals on it, which is it's very special.
That's funny.
BTK
just posted on the forums about our Don't Go in the Woods episode. He put in quotes, "You can check out Justin's website at hysteria.co.uk." So I guess I did mess it up. Wow.
Oh well, not to worry. Sorry, but yeah.
Correct.
Well, is that everything from Alex, or
that's everything?
Okay,
that's a lot of feedback.
That's a lot of feedback. Well, thank you, everyone, for writing in, and please do keep on writing in and phone in as well. So I think the number's correct. It's just the website that's we'll get that sorted. But well, what an epic show! I wasn't really sure it would actually go on this long, but it's one of our longest ones. And I think it is.
Yeah, it's one of our longest ones.
What I was thinking.
He says you're being rude, Justin.
When have I ever been rude? When have I ever been rude?
Justin, Erik, are you going to tell everyone what our next feature is going to be?
Oh, yes.
It's your pick.
Yes, we're going back a bit more highbrow. I thought people might need a break from sort of bottom of the barrel goodness, as it turned out to be. We're going back to 1981 and one of the slasher classics, The Prowler.
Yay, The Prowler.
The Prowler.
Good
so
movie.
something to look forward to. And I thought, have we got anything else we want to add before we...
Can I just add, I had the movie A Night to Dismember playing in the background while I do the podcast. That's what I normally do, just in case anything strikes me. And one thing I didn't notice before was there's a newspaper headline that says Vicky Kent released from state asylum. But underneath it, there's another headline for another story that says, teen survives rape and river, finds a friend.
I saw that.
What? That's like one of those Simpsons things, like man loses life, life.
Teen survives rape and river, finds a friend.
Well,
bizarre.
God.
I thought it might be appropriate, given that Samantha Fox and Sam Fox are always getting mixed up, to actually play out with Sam Fox, page 3 stunner. Her classic song is "Hurt Me, Hurt Me, But the Pants Stay On."
Love it.
Yes, so I thought we'd play out with that, and what a title. Awful song, but what can you do? So thank you for joining us, and we'll see you again next time on the Hysteria Continues.
Bye.
Bye.
The pants come off.